Come on. Now there it goes. Okay.
All right, I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and we're immediately going into non-public referencing RSA 91-A:32 personnel.
Second.
Roll call,
Yes.
Denise, yes. Okay, I'm sorry, it's not gonna be long, I promise.
Power's off and it
Oh.
makes beeping noises.
Well, it only used 3 minutes of battery life.
So it appears, Kate, that I double booked.
Oh, you
and,
double booked me?
you and transfer, so I apologize if you had to wait.
I don't like being in group B.
Oh, you should be here earlier.
It's all right.
Group B's pretty good, yeah, we're
I'm missing a 12-year-old birthday party, I can be late.
Well, if you want to come up, because I promised you, so
Okay.
go ahead up. We're not in non-public with your request, right?
No.
Okay, no,
No, I just, two things. The printer situation.
yes.
So, my printer is currently working, but on its last leg.
This
So
is the old one,
The old one.
okay.
So I ordered a new cartridge for it. And the question is, why did you order a new cartridge at $170 because we may be getting a new one? So Tom has come in and set Andrea up to be able to do DMV work with me. But this particular printer will not allow us both to print from it, but the new printer will.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
So my question to you is, I didn't want to order the new printer and have you say, well, is the old one dead? And I'd say no. Should I return the cartridge, keep that as a backup, order the new one so the two of us can
Well,
print?
can she, okay, so this printer is strictly printing for DMV?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, does it make sense for her to have her own and then she's not interfering when you both are doing it at the same time?
It kind of works, we have a station between us, so that as we print, we can just pull from it. It's not really
You mean
necessary.
the new one?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we have the cartridge, if we use it as a spare, but we wouldn't put any more money into it going forward, and maybe if they hook her up, then you at least have two printers if something happens with the new one. I don't know.
True, I mean, I think it's a good backup, because new doesn't necessarily mean better. You know, we could have as much trouble with a new one as we've had.
Well, they both have the same standards, right? They both have the
They
double
do.
trays and all of that.
The problem is the state has cheaped out on their paper now, and the paper quality creates a problem with the rollers.
And that's why we've got the new one.
Yes.
So do you think that we
Well, I
should
haven't
just,
bought the new one yet.
when you go in to
Yeah.
buy the new one?
Yeah,
So-
I think we'll have the same problem. But this one's like 14 years old. I don't think we're gonna have a problem right off.
Well, also your rollers probably could be replaced.
We
which
did
would
that
help.
too.
Oh, we already did
Yeah, I
that?
had that done twice, yeah.
All
So,
right.
I just wanted to let you know before I order the new one that the other one is not completely dead. But it allows Andrea and I
What
to
should we do?
both,
I think we should go forward, because it sounds like it's,
yeah, now that, you know, I'm really excited about the Tuesday, Thursday nights. If she can jump in, because
I know, that's.
it's
what-
usually 6 or 8 people for just cars. And it's hard for her to be like, oh, we only have one DMV station.
Mhm.
You know, it's,
I mean, we've got her hooked up and she's all ready to
Yeah,
go,
it's just
so
the
she
printer.
should be hooked up for the printer.
Yeah.
Um,
But do you want me to return the cartridge from the old one?
how much was it?
167?
No, I want you to hold it. I
Okay,
want you to hold it
have a
at
backup.
this point and have a backup. Well, you gotta use it now until you
Yeah.
get your printer, right?
Right, true.
So,
Okay,
I,
so I wanted to go over
what do you
that.
think, Jessica?
Yeah.
I mean, it's already been paid for and everything's all taken care of, right?
Where'd you
So-
buy the cartridge?
Computer Hut.
Oh, wow.
So I'm on a network with all town clerks, and we usually have the same printers, and that is the best price.
Yeah, I was thinking like Best Buy or something will totally overcharge you, but
Yeah, no, we kind of network, and, you know, everybody tries to find the best price, and then they put
it's
it
an
out
old
there.
printer, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be hard to find.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
And secondly, I came in because the transfer station revision, which I'm thrilled about, I want to be part of because it really affects our office in a big way. And I just want to give you some background, like just this week or the last 2 weeks. And the transfer station, you guys have been amazing. You know, a couple showed up with a truckload of furniture and a bunch of junk, and they moved into their son and daughter's home. And they came in and they're like, well, they wouldn't let us go to the transfer station. I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, where are you from? Well, we were in Londonderry, we moved in with our son. Okay, so where's the stuff coming from? Well, it's from our old house. Well, no, you can't have a dump sticker and you're not bringing it here. And we're seeing more and more of that. We had an irate customer this week who literally, they go to their closing at 10 o'clock, they're at our window at 11, they want a dump sticker. And they have Massachusetts plates. They're like, no, you have to prove residency. Well, I bought the house. Well, that doesn't mean that you're gonna live in it. And when you buy a house, it's empty. Like,
Sometimes.
what do you have all the trash? Well, no, I mean, you don't usually buy a property that's loaded with stuff. So I have some recommendations for the board going forward, because with the prior board, and I called this, when we started giving dump stickers out to Second Street are 6-unit condos, 8 of them, and they all have their own dumpster. And for years, we didn't issue transfer station passes to them. But a prior board said their owners, they should get a sticker. And I said, you watch, our tonnage is gonna go up. And sure enough, it's gone up. Because we can't find the document that said that they are to, being a 6-unit building, have a dumpster and, not be using our recycling center. So we have this fine line of people who own and people who should be able to get a transfer station pass. I disagree with Second Street or any unit 3 or more. Like the building over here, there's 4 units. He gets $1,800 a month for rent, and we're issuing dump stickers. There's 4 units, they should have a dumpster. And I think that should be 3 units or more for buildings like this and here and Second Street, because that's where our tonnage is coming. I think our building debris and our overall trash is building. So I feel that we should bring it to 3 units, and I think Second Street's a whole nother situation that, we shouldn't have been issuing. That's another 40 stickers where, there's 6 units in those buildings, and they do have dumpsters. And they change over all the time. So every time a property changes over, it's a sofa, 2 beds, it just keeps adding up. And I also think we need to limit how many transfer station stickers we give. We have a particular electrician in town who has, I think, 5 or 6 vehicles, and he wants one for all 6 of his vehicles. And at the window, I say, no, because those 6 vehicles go to 6 different jobs. They're not Rollinsford, but we're taking all the junk in. So we have these particular cases which, in the prior board, I would say no to. They'd go to the board, and the board would say, oh yeah, everybody, you own land, you own company cars, you get as many as you want. And I think we need to tighten that. And I love the fact that people are gonna have to have building permits to be disposing stuff up there, because, there's construction going on in town, but there's not that much. And the problem with residents being able to purchase one because they own property, we have people who own property in town who also own in Somersworth and Dover and Rochester, and, we've all seen it. I've seen the trailers come down Somersworth Road and right over to the transfer station. You see it, and we need to somehow...
How would you control that?
I think that just because you own property does not mean that you should be able to get a transfer station pass. I think that your average person who comes in, who has a home, should get a transfer station. I think if you have someone who doesn't live there, it should go before the board. And I think if they're cleaning out an apartment, they should get a 1-day pass or a weekend pass. But to get a year pass to come in every single week, I just think that's where a lot of the abuse is.
I guess I misunderstood you. I thought you said that you have a property owner who lives here, but also owns places elsewhere.
Yep.
How would you control that? You gotta give him a pass if he lives here.
Oh, no. I know some that, I'm sorry, doesn't live here.
Oh, you're
But-
saying property,
Right.
like someone owns property in our town
Right.
and somewhere else in
And
multiple places.
currently it says if you own property, you get a sticker for a year. And I think that needs to be
Even for a
tightened.
non-resident.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't say you get it for a year, but you
Right.
are
We just
entitled
talked
to
about
use
this.
it, yes,
Yeah.
you may use the
The
train.
people in your property who live there gets to.
Residents get
Get
it,
it,
but also
but-
it says property owners, it doesn't really
Oh.
define to what degree, whether they get an annual sticker or whether they get a one-day pass,
One-day pass.
but they
Which
do
I
have
get, if
access.
somebody moves out and leaves you a bunch of junk,
Yeah.
yeah, you should be able to bring that up.
Right,
But when you're coming in week after week with, a trailer load,
no, I get that.
and these guys, they know, I'm there 3 days a week. I see the people coming in, and I'm like, really? You, Mr. and Mrs., you're in your 50s and you got a trailer load of trash
It
again.
doesn't say they're out of state, out of town homeowners on the stickers, it just gives the
Right.
same sticker, so that
Mhm.
you don't have that option to see it anyway.
So I guess what I'm asking for is my support with the board, that when I say to somebody, this is an unusual situation, I'd like you to go before the board. We're not gonna issue you a sticker. In the past, everybody gets a sticker. Everybody ended up coming back getting a sticker, and it was as though it was wasted effort on our part. And, we're residents, we're paying taxes, we just wanna see it used properly. Every transfer station around is cutting way back. Dover, Portsmouth, they are very tough. They're ripping open bags, they're looking for building permits. Everybody's getting tough because,
It's a big cost.
yeah, it is. And ours is wonderful, and I can't expect them to know who's moved out and moved in. The other thing I want to talk about is the price, because my new stickers are coming in. I do want to sell them in November. And I think I'm gonna go up to the transfer station and sell them, because I wanna see who's coming in. I mean, we've had over 40 homes sell in the past, 6 months. And I think we got people that are still sliding in.
Mm-hmm,
And I don't wanna be the bad guy, I don't wanna be a cop, I don't wanna, but it's not right.
mm-hmm,
You either live here or you don't.
mm-hmm.
And it either comes from here or it doesn't. So I'm just asking the board for your support when I send somebody to you, send me an email and ask why I'm concerned.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I pass them on Route 4 every Saturday morning when they're coming from Dover with a trailer load. And I'm like, it's not right.
Okay,
So that's
Thank
the
you.
scoop, and I will attend, we're gonna have a meeting, public meeting
Public hearing.
on,
oh, yes, about the transfer station.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
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 For
Okay.
sure.
that's it for me.
Thank you for coming in.
Okay.
Alrighty,
Good night.
good night.
Thanks again, good work.
All right, approval of minutes from September 23rd. Are you okay with those?
Yes.
Okay. Approved by consensus. Community input? Yeah? All right. Town clerk is gone. Police?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have one item, but I know that you need to talk to me about the cruiser. The proposal that I did for the salaries for you folks a couple months ago that you approved,
Mm-hmm.
just want to make you aware of the fact that Officer Malatek, according to the proposal, will be due for an increase on October 6th, which will be next week.
Okay.
So you already approved this, but I just want to make sure that you're aware of it, that will go into effect next week. And I will let Caroline know on the appropriate payroll slip that it goes up to
Okay.
the 22.
Could you do
He's
your,
done an excellent job so far, there's no reason not to give it to him, so.
Okay.
would you mind writing that up for them to sign so it could go on their file,
Sure.
a piece of paper?
Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have for you.
All right, well, that was an easy one. Okay. I have proposed ordinance revisions, but that was last week.
That was last week.
Okay, so that can come off?
Did we, did you set a, I don't recall offhand, is there a public hearing date for that?
Yeah, you were going to put it on your calendar at some point.
Yeah.
Really, I
so-
hadn't.
I
Okay.
don't, there wasn't.
For the signs, right?
These are
Signs
for
For
will
the
go
travel,
back
traffic
for the
to-
travel restrictions
Oh.
and
And the
the
speed limit.
the
Right.
speed
Yeah.
change, or
Okay,
the roads.
I will get that. All right, cruiser funding,
Cruiser funding,
cruiser funding.
contingency.
I heard there was an oops.
By all, I guess, yeah. All right, so it isn't as bad as it was. We thought it was gonna be, right?
Correct.
And we got that confirmed by,
We do not have anything in writing, but it would be prudent to decide, hypothetically, once we get this letter from DRA, where you're getting the funding for the cruiser lease.
okay. And this only affects this year, right?
Oh, it affects only this year because we are going to work together to make sure it's not the case
Because each year
next
you have to put it in,
No,
No.
well, typically no.
okay.
This year, we're gonna have to revisit this article again next year. That is not normally what would ever have to happen.
Okay, all right, so you kind of want to put on the record what's going on?
We have been notified by the Department of Revenue that there was a one-word error in the article for the police cruiser lease, which negates the ability to use CIP funding for all of it. So we can use CIP funding for the $13,000 to equip the vehicle, but in order to take delivery of it this year, we need to find $12,000 in the operating budget
Which we can,
for the lease payment.
we have it in contingency. Thank goodness.
Thank you.
So the wording was, I forget what the word was.
The wording was that this lease agreement does, it contains an escape clause, or just something to that effect.
That you can back out of the lease.
Right, but really, it should not have said that. It should have actually said the opposite.
Okay.
It does not have an escape clause.
Correct.
Right, because having an escape clause, using CIP money is for a long-term purchase, and that's why it's for this particular case, because it's coming out of CIP,
Right,
that would be a problem, because it's supposed to be a long-term purchase.
right, and then
Okay. And
theoretically,
if
you
you have
can
an
sell the
escape-
vehicle or not continue to lease it, or
After a
something after the
year.
1 year, which would negate the ability to use
Right,
CIP,
Okay.
so.
Makes sense, yeah.
it does make sense, so we'll have to watch that going forward, okay. And they didn't catch it either,
They
because
didn't
they
catch
review
it.
our
Yeah.
warrants as well,
Oh, I know.
before, so, good lord. Okay, so, should we make it a motion that we can take it out of contingency?
I think that's a good
Okay.
idea, yes.
All right, I'll make, it is 12,000 even?
Yes, for the lease payment.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we apply the $12,000 lease payment for the new cruiser, instead of CIPs.
Seconded.
All right, out of contingency, did I say out of contingency?
Yeah.
I think I did, okay. All right, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Okay, so, and then you can use all of this equipment that's going on through CIP.
Correct. So just as a point of information, this changes, depending on how the board chooses to address it on next year's warrant, you now have $12,000 in CIP that you weren't gonna have.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
I'm not sure, how, or, to what degree we're gonna be able to access it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something to think about, that
Right,
it changes.
that we have that additional 12,000 in there now,
Yeah.
so, okay. Well, at least we can put this, still, I was a little worried. When are you taking ownership of it?
Well, I was just going to mention that they anticipated arriving in New Hampshire on Saturday.
Okay,
So I imagine we should be getting a call from the dealership sometime next week.
okay,
I've actually heard from the salesperson at Grapponi Ford about the lease. And I need to connect him with Caroline.
mm-hmm,
But I was waiting for the meeting tonight to send him the information to contact Caroline for that paperwork,
okay,
so.
all right,
The paperwork is later on the agenda, but the paperwork requires some information about the vehicle that I don't have. So I've sent you an email about that, and if you want to stop by tomorrow, you can see the form and see
Sure.
okay,
what's required.
all right,
Thank you.
all right.
That's all that I have for you. Anything else for me?
That's it,
All right, Drew.
all right.
Have a
Thanks,
great night.
Al. Have a good night. All right, Myers not here. All right, highway. You guys wanna come up again? which is highway visit October 7th,
Yeah.
and that's still on.
5:30, yeah.
What time?
5:30.
5:30, all right. Very good. And are we having our meeting there afterwards, or are we coming back here?
Well, so that's later in the agenda, it's something that needs to get
Oh, yeah, because it's-
decided, because we are, you're
That's
receiving
FBC.
Stratford Regional Planning Director, and
Mm-hmm.
if we can't be firm about a time and location, then we ought to postpone it.
With them?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
we've already done a
Yeah.
couple of times, so.
Okay. All right. Anyway, okay, so I look forward to meeting them all. So, is there gonna be all of your employees,
Right now,
including your snow plowers and?
maybe not Mike.
Who?
Mike Spinney may not make it, but
Okay, I mean, but your snow guy. your
everybody
snow
else is gonna
guys?
be there.
Good,
Transfer
good,
station guys.
good. I haven't really met a lot of them, so that would be nice to meet them. Okay. Transfer station ordinance revisions.
I got a PO.
Oh, you wanna do a PO? All right, you can do it. You can go above him.
I got a PO for $3,500 storm drain cleaning.
Oh, okay.
Thought I already put it in, but I put it electronically.
It's done though, right?
No, it isn't.
Oh.
Because, most of it's done.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, sure, go ahead.
Move purchase order number 1750 to Belmore Sewer and Drain for catch basin cleaning for the amount of $3,500.
All right, I'll second it. Any discussion?
Discussion.
They might have to add, we got about 10 more to do, and they already sent us a bill because they thought they were done.
Oh,
So it may be,
So,
what you figure?
$4,300, another $800, maybe if it's another full half day, it would be approximately another $800. So
can we
Right,
just
there.
revise this?
I would revise that and just bring it up to
It's at
4,300.
31 right now, the bill was.
Oh, all right, so then it's there, so $4,000 will do it then, it's an extra $800, so $4,000 would do it. But it's probably better to revise it now than to have him come back to the board about it.
All right. You
Um,
okay, do you?
The budget figure is $3,500,
Yes.
just so you know. So
That's
it's,
because we're doing the ones on the state road, right?
No, we're not doing the ones on the state road, we're
It's the
doing
state.
all of them,
Well, I know.
all of ours, not the state ones.
You're not doing, well,
And we're inspecting of, what we're doing is an inventory of all our, what types of shapes they're in. It's
Okay.
taking a little longer to do this
oh,
dog.
okay. So is the state doing theirs?
I haven't talked with the state about doing this, but, that's.
we don't have the authority to go in there and do theirs.
No, but we should be notifying them that they should be doing it because of stormwater, and they should be following the same rules that we have to follow, correct?
Well, in principle, we have no teeth behind that, and we don't know what their MS4 permit dictates them to do and when it dictates them to do it, but in theory, yes.
Okay, when we fill out our MS4 and we talk about Rollinsford and everything that we're doing in Rollinsford, does it eliminate all of the state-owned roads?
Yes.
It's listed?
Well, that is not our MS4 district. If it is state-owned, it is state-owned and we are not responsible for it. However, they flow in and out of each other.
I was gonna say, but one goes into the other, so how do we control that?
You don't, you can't. Ultimately, you don't have any authority to. It's worth a conversation for sure, back and forth, but in the end, they're their own organization that's gonna do what they want, and they're separately accountable, even though we're interconnected and affecting each other.
Yeah, we can't stop the water from coming down one street and going into this.
I know, but,
We
We can't do it.
Push real hard.
yeah, I mean, we have to do it, but if they don't do it, it affects what we do. It just doesn't
Yes.
seem,
The good news is, though, you're not pulling a lot of stuff out.
No, actually, we're gonna probably be able to skip next year.
And so the
with
moral
their
of,
permission.
so the moral of that story is there's not a lot of.
Because there's not gonna be enough to take out. We're
Oh,
not
I know,
taking
but-
enough out.
So what that means is that there's not stuff, for them to clean out, so it's
Yeah.
not spilling into our stuff as much.
I know, but every year can be different,
For sure.
so.
However, they are under the same regulations with regard to plowing and not using sand.
Mhm.
So really, in theory, there shouldn't be anything different about their catch basins than our catch basins.
Okay, all right. It's only this road, it's only Main Street, right?
Correct.
Front Street.
Well,
They're
Once is a state road?
Not the Black Bean side, but the Iona South Berwick
goes,
side is.
there's one one or two on Front Street going towards the town line.
Really? That's a state road?
The state, yeah, the state comes out of Maine and takes the left and goes to the bridge and comes back.
State Bridge too?
Huh,
And then there's one catch basin on Rollins Road at the bottom of Heritage that would be state, or
right,
two.
that would be,
One on each side of the road.
okay. All right. So the one over by the fire station isn't state?
Yes,
That is state, yeah, because that's the state road,
that's part of Main Street.
okay.
And they may have some on Portland Ave that don't flow into our system.
I don't know if there's any out there.
I don't know, but if they are, they don't flow into our system.
Right, okay. All right, so do we need a revised motion,
I would just, so,
an amended motion?
a motion to
A
amend.
motion to amend, and what did you say you wanted to make it?
For
Just
1,000.
4,000
I
even?
think, George, you think
Well, it
that's,
was 2 days and it was 3,100, so if they go longer than that half a day, which you're gonna get, I don't know if he charges for a whole day.
so it's whatever you think is comfortable, but you're comfortable with, but it's about $800 for a half day.
So you wanna do the 800 for
That's a half day, so.
4,400?
Yeah, I probably ought to put it maybe to 44 to be safe.
44?
Whatever the overage is can come out of stormwater, because it's really the stormwater regs that are making it go over
Making
budget.
us doing it, okay. All right,
10 or 12 handles all of itself.
so we have an
It's 10 or
amendment
12,
for the
it's not 10 or
I
4,400?
didn't realize there was that many on General Sullivan.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so we've amended the PO. So the motion to accept PO 1750 for the 4,400. Signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay, we're good. What's today's date?
Sure.
30th.
30th.
It's B-E-L-L-E.
There you go.
Oh, sorry, no B-E-L-L-R-O-R-E. No, I'm spelling it wrong, I'll just look at it.
Okay.
I spoke with the manager at the truck company last week. The truck body should have been there either Friday or today. So we'll probably be getting a call to go up and inspect it before they do the final painting, in case we wanna add shovel brackets or anything like that. So within a week or so. So we should have our truck within hopefully a couple weeks.
Okay,
Do you need it?
Yellow, thank
Yellow.
you.
all right. Well, I signed the check today, but I signed the check tonight. So I was hoping that was good news that it was here, so. Anyway, all right, anything else on the transfer station ordinance revisions?
I did go down through it. And marked up this copy, so whoever wants it can have it. You said, right,
With
to
your
mark up the yellow,
Yeah,
The
so
red
that's
line one,
the
I
same
think.
version as you have before you, it's the red
That's
line
the red
version
line
with my suggested
Yeah.
edits.
Yep. So it's just,
I just made some notes on it, that's all. Because I still can't go in my computer and do
okay.
any typing as far as changing anything.
Okay, so for instance, you want on this F1, the burnable shall be separated from the non-burnable materials, you want that taken off?
We don't, I don't know why that would be in there.
Okay.
We don't burn any,
Non-burn.
the only thing we burn is brush.
Right.
We don't burn wood, we don't burn construction debris, so.
Okay,
That might have been, I don't know what they did.
Probably some,
Yeah.
yeah, it's probably an older part that was in there, so. And now that, Kate has some things she wants to change maybe, so.
Isn't this for the users, so that someone didn't bring a whole pile of construction debris mixed up with brush?
No,
It's gotta be separated anyway,
they don't just, they can't dump it that way.
yeah.
We
Construction-
haven't had no construction debris dumped with the brush.
No. Unless you can think of a reason to leave it in there. I think what Kate had to say does have some points, so. Maybe two stickers per household, I don't know why you'd want any more. And then,
so you want it in the center of the windshield under the mirror?
but it's gotta be someplace easy to see, and right
Well,
now,
I thought it was the corner drum.
right now it's the
side.
passenger side.
Yeah,
That's fine if they're using the right-hand dumpster, or right-hand compactor.
Depends which kind.
Yeah, if we're using the left-hand compactor, or what I call my lower compactor, the left-hand one, the attendant standing to the left has to get to the right to see that side of the car. So if it was in the center,
Where the old stickers
So you're
used to
saying
go.
because now your motor vehicle ones have been moved?
yeah,
It's open underneath the mirror.
that's what I was thinking, it might be better to have it right in the center of the windshield where it's right there no matter which way they're coming in.
Is it allowed there though?
I don't know. Sticker
As
was.
long as it's not obstructing the view.
Yeah.
We talked to
Yeah,
Bob
why
about
did-
it,
Why
but,
did they move the stickers?
Why the
Convenience, probably.
DMV ones?
yeah.
I don't know why they
You can
did.
still put your easy passes and whatnot up there.
Oh, yeah, my Easy Pass
So,
is there.
yeah,
So if my Easy Pass is there, where am I gonna put it?
Yeah, it's not gonna block your easy pass.
right below the stickers are only what, yay big, so.
Doesn't need to see your Easy Pass anyway, it doesn't matter if
No.
Easy Pass is
Yeah,
on.
that won't affect the easy pass.
Yeah.
You can put your sticker right under the Easy Pass.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I won't see that thing right there in my spot, just saying. Who knows?
Yeah, motorcycle I had a windshield with a little black piece on it, so it hide the easy pass. So,
And we have to list every manure that we take?
I don't know if we had to, but that one there said horse,
Okay.
but if you're gonna take horse, why not take goat
Goat,
and
sheep.
sheep?
Well, you
What's the
could,
difference?
and that's open for discussion. I added horse to be clear because of history, and the history is that it says later that it has to be, it has to be brought in plastic bags because someone continually
That's
brought
domestic animals, I think that's more,
maybe
cat and
domestic
dog.
versus farm.
that's more cat and dog
It
in
was
that
dog,
section.
like somebody just would keep bringing 5-gallon pails, not in a bag, and
Yeah.
dumping it right in the compactor,
Mhm.
which should not be
That's a
happening.
mess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This ends up actually down in the compost pile, the horse manure,
Okay.
where you don't wanna put the dog waste.
In the,
So, in the
in the-
compost pile, dog waste
Why?
needs to be thrown away.
why?
Because dogs are a meat-eating animal, you can't mix it in with compost, believe it or not.
It generates more bacteria
Yeah,
rather than
Yeah.
cows.
That's the issue we have with
Stormwater.
stormwater.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's two totally separate animals, if you will.
So do you address dog waste here,
I don't know if dog waste was listed, but
or dog or cat
there
waste?
was a section in there about domesticated animals,
Okay, that would be anybody in the,
more dog and cat.
So
than it
it's
would
under
be-
number 3, letter B, the disposal of animal waste shall be limited to domestic household pets and must be properly contained within a bag with other household waste.
okay, so it goes in a regular bag and it just gets disposed of in the hopper.
So we can change horse under 2A to just, farm animal manure, if that's better.
Yeah, because you got cows too.
I mean, typically people aren't bringing in cow manure, but,
I think that's the only, so I put that because I think that's the only manure that people typically bring in.
Yeah.
So
It's
it
horse.
limits it to the existing.
and it's small quantity, any that we've ever had, it's been, a little,
Trail over the time.
Yeah.
That guy up here.
small trailer.
Hmm.
Yeah, not talking like dump truck load or
Right.
anything.
Okay.
No, I mean,
And that stuff
nobody
mixes.
has goats in town, so we.
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't know if anybody did or not.
Oh, I think so.
What's the farm out on Bear Road?
Those are alpacas.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't do the same thing, right?
That's a what?
I mean, they're similar.
It's a goat?
Yeah.
It's a non-domesticated animal.
There you
It
go.
lives outside, it's got 4 legs, you can't ride it, right? Same thing.
They must take care of it like other
They might just
animals.
spread it in the field.
Yeah, they may just
Well,
spread
I
it,
was
yeah.
gonna argue
That's
with
what I
it
do
as
with
a
my
fertilizer,
horses.
right?
I think the only reason why this particular guy does, he doesn't have a field of spreader in here.
Well, because he's on the
Where it
corner,
is.
is that the
Yeah,
one
the one
that's
up here
over?
at the strip.
Yeah,
Was that the one by the fire station?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He
he's-
hauls his in by trailer, that's the only one that we
Right.
get.
It's funny, because when
He
you were
has
talking about
goats,
this, I was
doesn't he?
thinking about that
You
property.
did,
I was
once
wondering.
upon a time. I
What's
don't
the
know.
eggs that he sells?
They're
I
not
mean,
goat
I
eggs.
No, I mean.
But if they were, you could make a fortune.
Maybe
This
they're not eggs, similar.
conversation's gone right downhill.
I meant milk.
You're getting to think that I've rubbed off on everybody.
I meant milk. Anyway, we're going to go on, move on.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
so, okay, we'll take your suggestions.
Yep.
And looking good, alright.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a lot, so.
I don't know, kind of the things that, I think the things that Kate brought up are, they're valid complaints. I don't know how we're gonna,
That's the
Fix them.
problem.
I
Yeah.
mean, I
Well,
don't really,
If you own a condo, I don't care if there's 10 in the building, if you physically own it and you live there,
That's a
you
rental.
would be entitled, I feel, to a dump sticker.
well, they're residents, they're not
Yeah.
just property owners. You can take out property owners and just have it say residents, and you're eliminating some. I don't think you really have cause to eliminate residents who also, by the way, own property, like the condos, like they're a funny situation, and I
you're
don't
talking
think,
about Second Street.
yeah, I don't think you
I
can
mean, they
really
have a
eliminate that.
dumpster, but, I mean, there's some things that you just don't. gonna
Well,
put
so
in
demo and
dumpster.
recycling,
Yeah.
demo and recycling.
Right, I mean, if they're doing the right things about doing, you
Yeah.
know, recycling and stuff, I don't
But
know.
that's a separately owned building though, it's not like it's a 6-tenant
Each-
unit.
Each unit is separately
It's
owned, right?
separately owned.
Through-
Yeah, well,
Well,
not
they
just
own-
each condo within each unit is separately owned.
Right,
So that
right.
means it's not
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not a 6-unit rental building.
So it's not, yeah, it's not really like an apartment building.
Yeah,
It's, you know, they're residents.
that's kind of what I was thinking, I mean, they're entitled to a dump
Mhm.
sticker, and if they have to do something that's a big item, they have to pay that,
Really, the
just
wording
like,
can just be as simple as owner occupied. If it's owner occupied, you get a sticker.
That's another way, rather than residents, you
Mm.
can do owner occupied, but you still have to provide it to tenants who rent
I was gonna
in
say,
a
yeah.
duplex or something, or
Yeah,
rent
you
a
do have
house.
to- yeah,
you know.
you
Yeah,
have to
so
have
like
it.
3 or more, you may wanna require them to have a dumpster and no stickers.
Mhm.
But the thing with that
They
is
still
now,
need to have-
you've pulled them out of the recycle stream, because
Right,
everything they have is gonna go in the dumpster,
right, or
so.
if they have a big item as well, that
Mhm.
takes them out.
So you can, like, he's got a good point, you can give them a dump sticker and require that they have a dumpster. You can't require that they have a dumpster in this ordinance, that's housing standards. And that's at the,
Right,
that's in March,
right,
but
which
in-
we just did that last year, didn't we?
you can do it
About the
again.
dumpsters.
You can do it every
Okay.
year if you want, it's up to the people. So this can only regulate who gets a sticker, not who has to get a dumpster.
Yeah,
And I don't think the increase that we're seeing over there has anything to do with Second Street or anything like that. That would be huge if it was. It would be a massive complex to be able to make a change.
yeah, I mean, I don't know,
I think there are a lot of different factors. I
Yeah.
think it's that, real estate is turning over a lot more than it
Mhm.
was. There is more construction and more building permits.
Yep.
There's just turnover of people, and every time there's turnover of people, people dispose of things.
Mhm.
And we have contractors in town who may very
Mhm.
well be bringing in debris from.
I'm pretty sure
So
there
how are we
is.
gonna solve that?
The
Do we
only way- the
require
only-
them to bring the building permit with them before they can dump?
They'd have to.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what we should do.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have a legitimate building permit for Rollins, where then they're going into dump, then that's okay, right? Because they're working in Rollins.
If they're working on all of
But if they're not working, if they're someone who's going outside
Or
the
we
town,
just ban contractors.
Well, but you have contractors who live in town who
Mhm.
will wanna put it on their truck, because they use their truck for business, but
Mhm.
that's their truck, they wanna put their trash in their truck. And then you're not really gonna control, like, so you would have to go further and say, you know, not issuing it to commercial vehicles,
Mhm.
or, you know, something like that.
Mm.
But then you're gonna get some,
I think it's a tough, no matter what
It
you
is
do,
tough.
because there's no way that you can prove
Yeah.
it. But at least you can maybe lighten it up a little bit if you require them going forward, that they have to bring a copy of the building permit that they're disposing of. Or-
With an
But they could
electrician.
say it's theirs.
Yep.
It does say under general use, section 2, general use, the last sentence, any contractor who wishes to bring waste material from a Rollinsford construction site must secure a temporary permit from the select board prior to going to the transfer station. So that's something that you might wanna, I mean, like, rather than, this board should not be handling that level of traffic,
Yep,
I
yep.
think. But it, you know, the mechanism is there already for them to get some kind of approval if they wanna get rid of
Mm-hmm.
construction debris. Like, we can just change that to say they, rather than a secure they must secure a temporary permit, they must, you know, show their building permit for
From where this
the
is coming
relevant.
from, right. And because when you're having a building permit and you're getting the job done, and once it's complete, do you ever get notification that the job is complete?
No.
So you can close out that building permit?
It depends on the project, and so it depends on whether it's something that is inspectable, that
Yeah.
requires a
Open
CO,
lines.
or whether or not it's
Or
something
having
that just
a-
goes on forever and we don't really care if you finished your deck or not, you
Yeah.
know, for example, like, you know, it kind of depends on what it is.
But maybe if it's something that's just like adding a deck and it gets done, we should have maybe something that indicates that they should notify the office that this is closed. And then someone can't use an old permit that we don't know about, that's been done for a year and a half, you know what I mean?
Well, they do have issue dates or approved dates or both. I mean, they have dates on them, so you can regulate that, you know, they have to use it within a certain number of months from the date of issue or the date of approval or, you know, something like that. And that, you know, if they need a waiver from that or an extension
Then
from
they
that
have to come
time
back
period,
in.
then they would come to the office.
Okay.
There'd be some way to get an extension of that.
Or
Okay,
at the time a building permit is issued, issue a demo permit along with it.
Like a one-time, like a.
So this demo permit goes with this building permit, this is good for 60 days, say, the demo permit. And
Well, but you
if
don't want
if
them-
they're redoing a deck, then they get the building permit to do the deck. The demo permit is there to get rid of
Existing.
everything else that goes along with building that deck,
mm-hmm,
but it's only good for 60 days.
It would, I think the building permit already serves that purpose, but the building permit is already specific to what the job is. So I
It has
think
no
it's
end date.
enough that they can just show that and say, and that way the building permit already says it's a deck. It already has its issue date. It serves that purpose already. We could have a mechanism or a process by which the transfer station people could have a stamp. And they just stamp the building permit and it just says, you know, disposed of, or, you know, like just an enormous, you know, a big stamp that goes across the building permit so that you've canceled that one out.
but it could be many trips to
It
it,
could be many
depending on the
trips.
size of
Yeah.
the job.
But
too.
at
I
least
mean,
it's
that-
current.
Yeah,
So it's a deterrent and it would limit it.
mm-hmm,
But yes, it's more cumbersome
So
and not
they're
foolproof.
doing this instead of getting a dumpster on site.
yeah,
Depends on the, yeah, I mean, if I'm redoing the deck on my house,
Right, but I mean, on a major construction job in town, they're gonna allow to bring that 30 yards of stuff to the dump.
as long as you pay for it,
Potentially, yeah.
yeah.
yeah, I don't see that as being an issue. I don't see that as happening, but anything can happen, I guess.
Do you see it happening that people are, you think, bringing truckloads from other sites that they're doing?
I'm pretty sure I know of a couple of contractors in town that they couldn't be doing this much work in Rollinsford.
And they, why wouldn't they take
Yeah.
advantage of
Yeah.
this? I mean, it's.
Yeah.
They're paying,
Service.
they're
I
just
know.
not, they're paying, they're just not,
Yeah, but then I
it's
know
not-
we have, what, 3
yeah.
electrical contractors in town?
Mhm.
I think there's 3. One of which will come in at any given Saturday with a van full of boxes.
cardboard,
Yep, but cardboard's fine, because we get paid for it,
mm-hmm,
but we don't get paid for the little wire ties, the packing material that's in there, the foam, all that sort of stuff. That ends up in the MSW. So it does get separated out, but,
mm-hmm.
you know, so. I mean, is it I don't know. I was gonna call it a perk, but you can't have a perk.
It's
You know,
costly work,
yeah,
that's all, I mean,
yeah.
it adds up,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd
does.
be really interested at the public hearing, if anyone has any ideas as to how to
Yeah.
regulate.
I know we had a similar issue in Acton, and we went with the demo permits, and that helped a lot.
is there an expense to the demo permit?
It's just a piece of paper that the
Just
code
saying that
officer
you
does,
can
yeah.
do it, and then when you get it weighed, then, or whatever you're gonna do,
Yeah,
or
you
whatever
just
it
come in
is.
with this extra little thing that says, this is why I can dump this, yeah. This goes with this piece of property in Rollinsford,
Mm-hmm,
so.
Does that come like, I'm thinking about things that I bring to the dump and I don't get a demo permit for, like like a cover, what did we do recently? Replaced the covers that go on the radiator. It was like 2 of them, we bring them. We don't get a demo permit for that, but we throw it in the
The
metal
demo bit,
stuff,
yeah.
yeah.
If it goes in metal, that's not an issue, we get paid for that.
Oh, okay.
So it's really just those 2 bins that have the,
Oh, so there's a specific demo.
yeah, you got the little
With
hill
like
now you climb up.
sheetrock or
Yeah, you drive
something?
up that little, yeah, sheetrock,
Yeah,
2x4s, part of a deck,
got it.
old doors, old windows.
Tubs.
Yeah, bathtubs, the fiberglass bathtubs. I mean, we do a good
Oh,
job of
yeah.
packing that stuff in,
And I
but
forgot to tell you, the meeting last month, they are accepting ceramic and all that again.
yeah, we're not. I'm not playing the back and forth game.
I want a ceramic bathtub. If you guys
So-
get one, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, in the glass, they've been going back and forth as to what they take and what they don't take.
Why are they suddenly saying they're taking it?
Because it goes back into what they're using this glass for now, they're using it for,
The shiny stuff from the roads, or?
no, it's actually used under your road, you can't use it on the roads because of the
Because of
sun
the-
glare.
because of
They
the-
can use it as gravel now,
It's base.
I didn't know
as a
that.
base.
They crush it.
Yeah, they crush it like they do a regular gravel now, and they put it under the roads as gravel.
Mhm.
And this town of New Ipswich has been doing this for years, and they've saved over $900,000 in gravel,
Wow.
because they keep their own glass and they grind it, they put it to a grinder and stuff like that. They had a pretty good article on it.
Hmm.
They accept others, I think they accept other towns at one time too. You gotta be permitted to do it, and now Waste Management has it, so I'm sure that what they're gonna end up doing is covering their landfill with it,
Mm-hmm.
once it's ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna save them, you know, significant money, but they're making money on it.
Mm-hmm.
They're still making that $30 a ton to bring it in,
Yeah.
or
I'd
35.
like to know how much it is a ton to crush it though.
Right, I mean,
It's not, yeah, it's not.
Crushing's
You
not
have like
cheap.
industrial drums to roll it or something
You
too,
know,
right?
the
To
big
round it
crusher,
off.
they
They
got
bring the big rock
crushers
crushers in,
Yeah,
crush it into 3/8 minus.
that's cool.
But it keeps changing because the vendors change and what the vendors
Yeah.
are willing to accept and what the market can use.
But the Waste Management's accepting the porcelain toilets and all that stuff now, because, I mean, what they're gonna use it for is probably fine, because they're gonna be covering their landfills with it.
Wonder how closely it's, cause you know how like steel is closely tied to the price of oil, whether someone is looking to scrap steel or they just wanna go out and make their own. I wonder if there's some other commodity that the glass is tied to. I'd be curious. This is all obviously not relevant, but I'm interested.
It is
All right, I'm
interesting.
gonna give this to Caroline
Yeah.
so she can put your revision. All right,
Okay.
all right, so are we all set on the revisions on the improvements then?
I think so,
Okay.
yeah, I went over that tonight again and
Okay,
So I will get a new draft for, to Ed to make sure that it meets his intention, and then I'll send it along to you all that you're on board with
okay,
the next revision. But you need to be in agreement with the language before you bring it forward to a public hearing.
okay, all right. Sounds good, okay, so,
you got my update on the grant, that I sent that off.
so you sent it out, you haven't
Yeah,
heard
we
back
should
that
know
though, somebody
Of the
had a date.
17th is
yeah,
of
okay,
October, so we should hear something by the 18th, they said.
all right, so when
The
you
girl I
hear,
talked to said it looks good, we've got everything we need,
okay,
so
all right, that's good,
we'll go from there on that.
okay.
Um,
And so, once we have that, then we'll make a decision on the scales. There's nothing else you have for information on the scales?
No, no
Just-
scales, no.
Okay, okay, so.
No.
Did you go with the printer? Is it, did you,
Yes, I put the, yeah,
The one with the
you put the
printer on it?
numbers down,
Yep, okay.
25,000 and 2,500 and change.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna figure, might as well do the whole kit and caboodle. So,
All right.
the only other thing I have, quick and easy, and this is kind of a neat thing, in a second here to get my email up. The legislature in New Hampshire has set up a small board, I think it's a 3 or 4 person board,
Mhm.
to look into recycling and waste in New Hampshire. It's a study committee, and they're taking testimony from different towns.
Mhm.
The executive president, actually, of NRRA, the executive director, Regan Bissonetti, I guess her name is, she's only been there since May, thought Rollinsford might be a good town to talk to as far as small towns, or to have us go and represent. This Friday, they're doing large towns, Monday, they're doing small towns.
Okay.
I have no issue going, if you folks don't mind me going.
Yeah, I think that sounds
I'm
great.
okay with
And we'll
it.
give them whatever input we can come up with, and
Perfect.
so,
The more you know,
yeah.
everyone can share and, yeah, great
Yeah.
idea.
But I thought it was good, because they reached out to me to see,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where we did switch from single stream to full recycling. You know, what have we learned, what are we finding for pitfalls, how they can help.
You guys switched from recycling to single stream and then back in like a short amount of time, right?
We
Two or
did
3
recycle,
years.
then we went single
3
stream, and
years.
then we went back.
Yeah, I don't know how long we were on single stream, because I've only been here 2 years.
2 to 3 years, we were
Yeah,
just.
Yeah, yeah,
So we're probably a pretty good case for
Mhm.
Yeah.
exactly how it worked out.
yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
so,
Well, good.
and I thought, I mean, I just got
Water
the
fell out of
email.
it right after
Yeah,
we did it.
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
I got the email today and thought, well, I passed it by Caroline, she's like, well, through the board, thanks. I didn't think you'd have an issue, but it's
Uh-huh.
always nice to ask.
Yeah, no, good, I'm glad.
And I have no problem going up to Concord and talking to those folks,
Cool,
so.
very good.
They're doing all the
Let us
towns
know.
in 2 days, wow.
Yeah, whatever towns wanna go, so.
Mm.
And it's only a short period of time they give you, you know, a couple, 2 or 3 minutes up to 15.
Oh, nice.
So it's just a short little blurb, and
Mhm.
where they said you can write up something and send it in, but I just soon go and see what it's all
Yeah.
about.
Well, then you can
Then
talk to
you
other
hear
people.
what- right.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're hearing what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
no, that's
And
a
that's the
really
other
good
good thing
idea.
about NRRA, I mean, we go to their meetings, at least, I mean, they don't have 12 a year, so we're at least 5 of them a
Mhm.
year, so.
Good.
And we won't be going to the next one, it's up in Littleton.
They're
It's
taking
like
it
a
on the road
ride,
for a little bit.
yeah,
Usually it's held right in
It's right there in
What-
Epsom,
Chichester, is it?
Epsom.
Epsom, yeah, that's it,
yeah, which is close.
yeah,
Chester.
yes.
Yeah.
So, but,
Good.
yeah, that's all I got.
All right, well, we have an illegal dumping incident, which we'll be handling
Yes.
and sending a letter, and, so we'll be taking care of that for you.
Okay, I thank you for doing
All
that.
right.
I think that's going far enough.
All right.
Yep.
Anything else, George? How about you?
I don't have anything, got anything for me?
I don't think so. Do we have anything for him?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So,
You still wanna wait on the computer, so we'll just hold off on that.
how do we look financially? Well, we just had a disaster though.
They're aware of the
Yeah.
disaster.
Let's look at the numbers. Keep us updated next week, okay? We'll see what we can do.
I have the rebudgeting thing here. You know,
Including the one we just voted in?
well, that's easily added. So it really hasn't changed much. Also, Chuck's putting together the third quarter ended today, so he's
Right.
pulling together third quarter financials. So I can update the budget workshop with third quarter financials, and that way you can see how your rebudgeting numbers are relating to what our new dollars are, if that makes you feel better.
No, I just wanna make sure that we have a little cushion
You-
before the end of the
you-
year comes.
You're still doing fine.
Okay.
We came in under on the fire station too.
Yeah, I saw that, yes, with Belanger, I just signed the PO, yeah, and it looks great, it really does, so good job for that. Yeah, give me till next week, give us till next week and we'll,
I wasn't gonna go out and jump, I mean,
yeah, let's
Gonna be on it
see
whenever,
where,
so.
yeah, cause we do have to do that's right, we have the third quarter review that we have to do, okay. All right,
Sure. I did take
That's good.
1,780 pounds of aluminum over to Berwick Iron today,
yeah,
and that paid us $356.
yay,
So,
good.
yep, that was 5 bales. So,
So all the bales that are in there, is it, some looks like it's no, not plastic?
yes,
It is plastic?
there is plastic in the
And then it's
Quonset hut.
tin? Okay,
Nope, there's plastic in the Quonset hut, there's cardboard in there, and there is the mixed paper.
okay.
and the blue top outside is covered in plastic.
Yes.
Okay, I saw you put some walls up,
'Cause-
so now you're gonna cover the bins over by the recycling.
We'd like to put a roof over that.
Yeah, those walls have been up since last January.
How come I never noticed them? What did you do differently?
I don't know.
I thought you just put them up.
No, those went up last January when we made the bins, we put those big dividers up.
You did?
Yeah.
They had to keep things separate.
Yeah, yeah. We do wanna put a
I
roof.
thought there were dumpsters in there.
No,
I don't do recycling.
There, a long
That's
time
my son
ago.
takes that
Ah,
down for
okay.
me, yeah, so I was just trying, I
Yeah.
thought that they
No.
put new walls
the
up.
first one is a dumpster, but that's glass.
Okay,
But the rest of them are just.
or just
are
bins with the
bins.
walls?
Yep. jersey barriers on the bottom and walls from there up.
That's why Gary looked at me really funny when I said, I like your new walls.
Oh,
Oh, well.
yeah.
Yeah.
We do want to put a roof over it. We did get some pricing on some rafters. Rafters? I called them the wrong thing when we went to look at it.
Trusses.
Trusses.
Okay,
Pre-made trusses to go up.
yeah,
I think the trusses were, what, around 2,200?
Right, it's not a lot of money, so.
Yeah.
And then we were gonna
Gonna keep the snow
Put
and stuff
tin
out
roof.
of them.
put tin
Yeah.
over the top.
yeah,
So, but we just, really just kind of watching the budget to see when we can pull the trigger on it.
okay,
I mean, we'd like to get it done before the snow flies, but
yeah.
if we don't, we'll go through another year with it. But
But
I mean,
aren't you,
we were still pulling snow out of it in June.
we were, literally, yeah. When we finally got down to the bottom of one of the tin bins, it was still snow in there,
Goodness.
or ice.
yeah, good lord.
And they don't like it. They don't like it mixed with water and ice and whatnot, and that, it just makes for a mess too.
Yeah.
It's not in good weight for
Because
them
it's,
either.
yeah, but
Yeah.
as much as you tell people to rinse, the rain does a lot of it, and it just, yeah,
Eventually you run the risk that they're gonna reject your loads.
Your whole load.
Yeah.
For a few pieces.
And you
that
might
they
lose a
see.
vendor who won't take your plastic
Again,
anymore
yeah.
or something like that.
So clearly you have a problem with Hanes, because I saw your
Oh,
little
yeah.
sign,
yeah. And that's because of the,
people are not cleaning.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
don't
I
know.
mean, I don't expect people to wash out with a scrub brush, but
Yeah,
at least rinse.
you have to rinse it, yeah, because you're gonna have that,
Yeah.
whatever,
The
yeah.
bees are lovely.
Yeah, but people don't rinse their tin cans. You finish the soda pop and off it goes. I'm one of them weird people that go to the sink and rinse out the can.
I do too.
Set it on the
I
side.
do too.
Yeah.
Well, if you keep it in the house, you get, I mean,
Well, you don't want the ants
Yeah,
either in the
the ants are the-
summertime,
are the
yeah,
bees, you
yeah,
know, I
yeah.
mean,
So we
yeah.
always rinse ours as well.
Yeah. But that would be our next major project, I think, would be to get a roof over that. And-
Yeah,
And with the trusses, like I said, it's about 2,200, I think, was the trusses.
trust system, yeah.
Then we gotta put aluminum, put some corrugated over that,
mhm,
and I haven't priced that out yet. That's not big money, because we're only talking 20 feet deep,
mhm,
so. And then a 10-foot deep area, so.
okay.
Yep.
All right, well, good job, guys.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, have a good night.
You too.
And we'll see you next week at your place.
Sounds good.
All right. So, 2020 budget planning.
So, that's just about how you wanna tackle the budget, but I would suggest you table that one until we deal with the bold ones, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, you did tell me that, sorry.
It's okay, I just
You're
wanna
right.
make sure that we conquer some of the things that are more time
They have to,
sensitive.
right.
Yeah.
All right, so cruiser lease application.
Okay, so I have an application form for an alternative leasing company. This is, it needs a signature, I still need the chief to fill in, some of the details about the vehicle
Mhm.
there, but this is gonna be, at least a 3% decrease in the interest rate.
Right, this, yeah, yeah. think we should go for it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and there's no, because there's no, like penalty on what he presented before in a lease company and all of those things, right?
So this is not gonna be your final sign-off, so if you wanna change your mind after looking at more things to sign, you can do that. You're still set up to take a lease through the dealership that the chief set
Mhm.
up, so you can still compare terms, but no, you can.
You wouldn't have a penalty though for backing out of that lease that he's already put through.
That is my understanding, but we still have to work that out. I'm trying to do two paths at the same time
Okay.
because this is happening in short order. I didn't realize that this was a almost 8% interest rate
Yeah.
that the dealership was providing,
Oh,
which
that's
is
insane.
extraordinary for municipal,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, no, I think we should definitely try to go through that. What do you think, Kim? Okay. And it's a 3-year lease, and that was the same lease amount?
It's the same
Yeah,
term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's just about the vehicle details.
So who has to sign it?
If you would,
We should make a motion for me to
yes,
accept.
and then you sign it, please,
And then I'll
yes.
sign it. Okay, so you want to make a motion?
Motion to sign the credit application for a new lease for the police cruiser for 3 years.
All right, I'll second it. Any discussion?
Did you think we should put a company name in that?
Tax exempt leasing corp.
Okay.
We'll modify her. Okay,
Sounds very official.
all right, I'll second that then, and any further discussion?
No.
And, can we modify the motion to
Oh, yeah.
authorize the chair to sign?
Authorize chair to sign the credit application to tax exempt leasing corp for a police cruiser for 3 years.
All right, you got that, Salmi? Okay, so, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Oh,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks for looking into that. All right, so, I think you're right, I think we need to change the visit for SRPC, director's visit on October 7th. We have our meeting with Highway as well as budget, we gotta get.
It's fine, I just wanted you all to
Are
see
you
that
okay
and
with that?
decide.
Yeah.
Reschedule definitely, whatever.
Okay, I will reschedule. Do you want your, the remainder of the meeting at the highway station? Are you moving the whole meeting, or do you wanna pick a time and come here for the official meeting workshop portion of the evening?
My only concern is if we needed something for here when we were doing that, I mean, we wouldn't have access to put it down there. I mean, right?
Well, I also don't wanna have them just wait up and then have to walk out behind us. Is that a thing?
I guess
I don't know where this is. This is at the transfer station.
The
right?
Well,
highway
no, the
barn is
highway
the fir-
department.
we should
So
first go in the
meeting-
barn before you get through to the gates to go into the transfer station.
Oh, I guess
Next
I
to the
never
salt
noticed
pile,
that.
there's a,
Yeah,
the
I know the
highway
salt
barn,
pile,
right
yeah.
there.
So that building there, so we're gonna meet there at 5:30 for you all to meet with the employees.
Mhm.
So the question is, what time does the official meeting start, and is that there, or is it here?
If we had it there, then someone would have to lock up after us.
Oh, I see your point, they would have to, yeah, so it
Right.
probably ought to move
I think
here,
we
in which
should-
case you
If
ought
it's
to.
at 5:30, I would say that we should be able to get everything said and done by 7 and move our meeting here.
Okay, so I'll post for 7 here.
Sounds great. It's
So
good
do
that
you
we're
think,
having it early.
that's too much time? That's an hour and a half.
I don't think there's, you'd be amazed at what they've done to that building, and I think it's worth,
Yeah,
There's-
yeah, so let's,
Sounds
wanna do.
fun too, so.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and we'll do that, but we'll come back here for 7
Sure.
for the rest of the meeting. I think that
Okay.
makes
Makes
more
sense to
sense. Okay,
Thank you.
all right, and the MS1 and the MS1B.
Okay. These are the last 2 documents required for setting the tax rate.
Mhm.
In reviewing the MS1, the MS1 fee is just the assessed value for the property within the district. So the MS1 is the property within the whole town,
Mhm.
and also whatever exemptions and credits we have. It has come to light in our internal review of the MS1 before we approved it and sent it to the board for approval, that we have 5 or 6 nonprofits in town, or properties that are owned by organizations that are not taxable. In order for them to not receive a property tax bill, they have to file paperwork every year. It's not our responsibility to remind us to do so. We have 2 organizations that did not file paperwork this year. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that as it stands now, they're slated to get property tax bills, and you're likely to get feedback about that. Since assessing finally rests with you all, you have the authority to change what I'm saying. You can choose to change this. It just sets precedents. So it's something to be very thoughtful about and proceed with caution. There's a further concern, which is that what really caught our attention is a property of considerable value, which would be tax exempt, which was just not valued at all. And it was not valued at all because of a conversation between the assessor and previous board member about whether or not it would really be, not taxable, and setting the precedence of valuing it and calling it non-taxable when in fact maybe it is taxable. To my mind, it's pretty cut and dry that it belongs to these people, it has a value, so we have to report its value, and then further, it's not taxable as long as they're handing in their paperwork. And by the way, they didn't hand in their paperwork. So they've never received a bill that I'm aware of for this property. So I very much anticipate there would be feedback about them receiving a property tax bill. But again, it's not our responsibility to remind people that they have to do, the error that it was not, its value was not in the assessing program is, does not negate somebody's responsibility to fill out the paperwork.
Okay.
So here we are.
Okay, so they are now in the system as taxable.
I need a determination from the board. I don't remember, I think he left it as not taxable, but,
Who's he?
the assessor.
Okay,
Um,
because of what it is.
well, because it is, yes, exactly,
Okay.
because it is not a taxable
However.
property if they would file their paperwork. And, Andrea spent the day making sure, we both don't remember receiving any paperwork.
Mhm.
She looked around all over the place.
Okay.
And so,
So so we're on hold for our MS1 because of this.
yes,
If we submit it in there with this property being taxable, and then they come back on us and they give us the form, how does that affect our MS1? So we're claiming something higher for taxes than we're really going to be.
well, here's the thing, they have to file their paperwork by a deadline. If they don't file the paperwork by the deadline, they didn't file the paperwork for the deadline. That's
So the
pretty black and
deadline's
white.
passed?
Yes.
Okay.
Can they apply for
Extension?
once we issue them a bill, aren't they going to try and apply for some sort of status change?
They can apply for an abatement, it doesn't mean they get it. An abatement is really more for, I disagree with the value of the property. It's really not, it's not really proper to ask for an abatement because you forgot to file your paperwork. Like, to my mind, that's pretty cut and dry. You have a responsibility as a,
As an
non-taxable
organization,
property owner,
right.
exactly, to file this paperwork. They have not asked for an extension.
And this is,
That's all.
there's two companies that are in this?
There are
now?
two.
Okay, so, has this happened before?
I recall it happening before with this other one, which is valued properly. It's just small, volunteer run, and I think they just don't have consistent people who are focused enough to remember to file the paperwork. But I recall, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I believe they got a property tax bill. So
Okay.
that's another consideration though, is equity. I mean, if, you have 5 or 6 of them in town and they're supposed to file the paperwork,
Mhm.
one does, but another doesn't.
So, with the MS1, which is due, if we have to make a decision soon because this is late or due soon?
Both now,
It's late?
yes.
Both of them are late?
It's not at this point holding up the tax rate because it's, they're reviewing other things on our behalf and with other communities.
Mhm.
But if we wait very much longer, it really will hold up the tax rate.
So what you're asking for us to do is to make a motion to have the taxes sent to the companies that have not filled out their forms and see what happens. And we can file our MS1. Because if we try, you're right, it's not our responsibility, they know that what they have to do, I get that. And it's every year they have to do it? Okay. So if they don't do it, it's on them, but if we don't do it, we're gonna be late with this and our tax rate setting is gonna be delayed from this, every moment that we wait.
Potentially. Which doesn't mean that you absolutely have to decide it tonight. I don't think waiting until next week is going to really affect anything. Just think about, is the extra week really gonna change your mind or
What
make
is one more week gonna do for me?
it? Well,
I
I'm
mean,
just
unless
saying,
they,
absolutely.
unless they come
but-
in with the form,
And, well, but even then, the form is late.
Yeah, it's too late, right?
I
Because
mean,
the
it
tax
just,
exempt isn't a property status, it's a organization status, right? So if they let it lapse, then the property is no longer tax exempt,
Well, no,
no?
no, it is presumed that they are still a tax exempt organization. It's just a form reporting to the town that, yes, we are still a nonprofit and still owning this property and it is still for a nonprofit use. That doesn't mean that their status with the IRS has changed. It's just their responsibility to send in paperwork that affirms their status and that they're,
Do they have to recertify with the IRS?
no.
No.
well, nonprofits do, you have to recertify.
Well, you have to do annual reports.
Right.
Yeah, just annual
But not-
financials
not
and things like that, but
reapply.
not like.
Not reapply once you're not
Right.
profit, you're not profit unless something changes on your side, but.
Unless it's revoked from
Right,
you,
right.
but yes. So that's separate. They have their nonprofit status, they're reporting to us that this is still for nonprofit use.
And these two businesses, are they likely to, because it seems clear that if the right thing to do would be to say, pay your taxes that are due, but then what impact is it going to have on the MS1? Like I guess this states the value of the properties, right, the MS1, and then
Yes.
we determine resident or property tax rates which is, I don't know, the same thing, based on what we need to generate,
So-
right?
Right, how much money do you need to raise, which is how much you're gonna spend minus how much you're gonna bring in revenue. So how much money do you have to raise in taxes and divide that by taxable property? So you have to eliminate the elderly exemptions, the vet credits, and these nonprofits.
So if we expect to collect this tax, then we'll probably be undersetting the rate if we're not actually going to.
Well, that's a really
Yes.
interesting point, because
Yeah, that's-
actually, one of these was not valued at all for the structure that was on this property because of a conversation between the assessor and a previous board member, which results in a large value that, depending on the board's will be reported this year, which was not previously reported. So that increases the overall value of Rollinsford considerably, which thereby lowers the new tax rate from what it would otherwise be. And so that's interesting because that sounds great, for
But if you
all
don't
of
get
us.
it,
Right.
and
Well,
they
you're
turn in
gonna
their
get
paper.
Well, you're gonna get it because, so they didn't file the paperwork, so they're gonna be taxed for full value. So the tax rate's gonna be less than it would be otherwise, but then the following year, they file their paperwork because they learned their lesson.
Taking that
And then
out.
the tax rate feels like more of a hit than it might have otherwise if
Right.
values were just consistently reported and either consistently exempt or not.
Yeah, so you get the benefit one year and then you take the loss the next year.
Well, and also is it reasonable to expect that they will pay because if they can take the town to, because we'll put a lien and then they can try and prove that what's existing case law, I guess, is what the question would be. What happens in similar, this must have happened before, maybe not in this town.
That's a good question. That's an unknown, and we can look into it.
Can we process this without adding that assessment into our figure?
Well, you can, but then you're telling the state, this is the value of all the property in Rollinsford, except that it isn't really.
But we'll be telling them that next year when we take it out.
Well, no, what's changing, so the value is always the same, the value is the value. What should change is only, is it tax exempt or not? And that depends according to whether or not they file their paperwork.
So the assessment is fine, it's whether or not they're gonna pay their tax.
Yeah,
Well,
so it
assessment.
should be assessed, right?
So,
It should always be assessed, right? Shouldn't it always be,
well, that's really the point of the form, is please assess your value, report to us that your assessed values, yes.
Yeah.
Why was it reported as 0? I don't understand, like, what was the reasoning?
well, you have to,
Is it,
well, you had a conversation
I don't
with
really
somebody.
believe in the conversation, so it's kind of hard to, if it's, some people believe there's gray area where I don't think there's gray area. But so, for example, there is case law, so the property value, you can't just be a church and say, this is a house and because we own the house, it's not taxable. You know, if they want to rent out the house and that's income, that's a taxable use.
Mhm.
If the house is for their priest, so their priest has something to live, somewhere to live, that supports the mission of the nonprofit, and that is a non-taxable use.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like that. There was a church in Durham, and this went all the way up to, I believe, the Superior Court, that they had parking spaces that they rented to students in Durham. They had extra parking beyond what they needed for the church, so they rented them to students. So that's income. But it didn't really align with the mission of the church. It had nothing to do with the church,
But
being
are
a church.
Are churches allowed to rent out the church for like for for something secular?
Well, so that's part of their building, which is itself the church. I think that's a little bit different. It's not the primary function. But, you know, these were like designated parking spots that were for students because their parking lot was bigger than it needed to be.
Mm.
So the church lost that in the courts. And that, it's not as though they lost the whole property, but that portion of the parking lot got profitable status. That was taxable rather, taxable status.
They could do it, but now they have to claim the income.
Well, you're gonna pay property taxes on that
On
square
that, like,
footage,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at now. So some felt as though it was better to not set a precedent. You don't wanna give them an exemption and then it could go to court and they tell you, you know, well, they gave us an exemption for this many years, so it must have been really exempt. But the law doesn't really work like that, and I don't believe that it ever would have been considered not exempt because the land is definitely for the use of the nonprofit. So, you know, I don't think that really qualifies, so I can't really speak to what the justification of the argument was to not list the value, except that they felt that it was better than listing it and giving it an exemption when they didn't believe it would be exempt.
Oh, weird. That's strange.
That, yeah.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, shouldn't happen between, I'm not sure.
Sounds kind of illegal.
Well, you know, I mean, you're swearing to the value listed here on this report.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I mean, that's what I heard. I did not speak directly to either party. You know, that's an email I got from one of them about their recollection.
Mhm.
It doesn't entirely make sense to me.
Mhm.
So I don't know that that's true. So I really can't speak to how this happened, except to say the value is large enough to be noticeably absent from the report.
Okay, so your recommendation is that we go forward with putting the value
And that it's
and then
taxable
it's
for this
taxable
year,
for this year.
for those two.
And then once that
nonprofits.
decision has been made, you will be able to do your MS1 and MS1B.
Yes, I'm just, you know, that is my recommendation, but I'm just alerting you that likely we're gonna receive feedback about that, which, you know.
I don't want to pay my property tax.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it is what it is, you know, you don't file your forms, there are consequences in life for, you
Mhm.
know, missing deadlines and not doing what you're supposed to do. So, they'll, I would think, remember for next year.
Okay, so this, how does that work? This is the second bill of the year. So they didn't get billed the first time?
They did,
They got billed in the spring? Of
yes.
this year?
Well, everybody does.
Yeah,
So the first issue tax bill is always half
right,
of the total you paid the previous year.
right. And if it goes up based on,
And then we set the tax rate.
yeah,
And you pay the difference.
yeah,
So you might all of a sudden have gotten, you know, it took us a long time to figure out your vet credit, you got your vet credit, so now it's gonna all be applied to this one.
mm-hmm,
Or else, you know, we did decide that, you know, your acreage was incorrect and we've adjusted it so that the balance is, you know, so this is the real tax bill, the first one is the estimated. So the estimated is subtracted from the full year. So we're doing the full year now,
mm-hmm,
and we're only billing you for the balance of the full year minus what you paid in the beginning.
So the affected people did not get their first bill though?
Correct.
Okay, so they.
Well, they got their, well, they didn't get this bill, right, it's gonna be very different. So,
They did not get a tax bill.
they may not
and
have,
paid
one of them
the
would
tax
not have
bill.
gotten a bill, the other one had extra land and got a really small bill.
Okay,
So in either case, this is gonna be quite a shock, yes.
okay. So are we going for the whole year?
Well, that's where we're at, yes.
Okay, because they didn't do the half.
'Cause they didn't-
Okay,
Yeah, because this is how the cycle goes.
Should we issue, trying to think what would like lessen the blow? Could we issue a letter saying, hey, you just, you know you're gonna get a property tax bill this year? Because you didn't file this form, in previous years you did, make sure you file it next year.
We could do that, just know that, we were thinking about this, we talked about this a lot, you know, if you, that's a little bit better than sending out a reminder. I just don't want people to expect that we're gonna correspond when we don't have to correspond,
Yeah.
and then sometimes we do and sometimes we don't.
Right, and then they could say, you didn't
you
remind
didn't
me
remind
this
me,
year.
so it's your
Yeah.
fault, I think, yeah. I think we just go.
For
with
sure,
it.
they're gonna notice and they'll give us a call.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should, add them to the, assess the property, add them to the MS1 and, bill them out.
Bill amount, all right, you
Okay.
wanna make a motion? We should have a motion, we should make it official.
Sure, to include both nonprofits, full value of both nonprofits as taxable,
Okay, due to
due
See
to,
them,
the non-submittal forms.
okay. So I'll make a motion that we, issue full taxable, bills to the two nonprofits that did not file their, what are they called?
Paperwork.
File
I
their
don't know what
exempt
the forms
paperwork.
are.
Seconded.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank
So,
you.
you're welcome. So now, once this is done, you can do the MS, and that's on the portal, right? You just submit it on the portal, is that something we have to come in and sign?
I believe it has one signature, and I don't recall if that's the assessor or if it's you.
Okay,
That
But
was
I'll
the
let you
thing that
know.
you signed last week, right? That was the authorization that you could submit it.
Right, because it's really convoluted,
Right.
but, you know, in the end, there's a draft of it in the blue folder there, you
Okay.
can see, you know. But I'll let you know when it's signable. My
Okay.
guess is it's you.
okay. Cruiser lease.
That's just a duplicate, we can move on.
Okay. Transfer station pass request.
Okay, so this is the third time about this, I think it's the third or
Is
the
it in
second
here?
time about this same property on Silver Street, single-family dwelling, rented out. So the property owner who does not live in Rollinsford is requesting even a day pass or a week pass or something to dispose of clothing and toys and I'm not sure what else. Those are the things he recalled offhand. There are things in the attic left by previous tenants.
Okay. This is the one we thought was a duplex on Silver, but
I'm
it's a
just
single
reading it
family
here right
home,
now,
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we've done it before, so I don't see the reason why we wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, I don't know, maybe a week, I don't know, sometimes I don't know if they can get it done in a day or something, but I would say maybe give them a week pass,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Okay,
all right,
thank you.
do you want a motion on that, or are you okay with a verbal?
Have a motion.
All right, I make a motion that we issue to a homeowner on, a non-resident homeowner on Silver Street, a 1-week pass with transfer station to dispose of items left by tenant.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right. We're going back up, let me see, I've done all the highlighted ones, right? Yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
that's great, thank you.
All right, you're welcome, so highway's done, okay, budget planning,
So, how do you want to tackle this? Where would you like to start?
what do you mean?
You can start by talking about salaries or take a, because that is, you know, the biggest overall chunk of, the budget and most of where increases are. Or do you wanna go through each section of the budget, individually?
You mean going forward or tonight?
Both. I mean, you can try to, so you have a budget workshop planned for the
Next
17th,
Thursday,
and, yeah,
I think.
and then you can work on it Monday night, but I think that's, so, you know, so it's just about, you know, how many times can you meet? And then how do you divide up all the topics and finalize that budget in the time frame? So it might be good to know, for example, that you can, if you can meet 3 more times, then you can pick maybe 2 or 3 sections a night.
Okay, so, yeah, we're not doing another budget thing until the 17th. I'm really nervous about this, to be honest with you.
We can, the 14th, Columbus Day, I can do one on that day. I don't know if we've decided not to, or you guys
But
don't
we always
want
have
to.
holidays off, I am away,
Oh, okay.
but
I don't know,
I will be
that holiday
home
off.
that day, but I don't know what time. But I'm really nervous about our lack of having it
Yes,
together. I mean, we're starting presentations on the 23rd.
yes.
That's CIP and highways on there right now. We gotta have answers before then. Is there, I think we should try to do another night the week of the 7th. Or dedicate after the highway meeting strictly on budget.
I thought that was the case.
Was that?
It wasn't, it's a regular posted meeting. I'd prefer to keep it that way in case there's something
Something
that's
that we
time
have to
sensitive
do.
that really needs to get dealt with, but you can certainly table most things and
Just move on. to
deal
budget.
directly
That
with
sounds like a
budget.
good idea to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting really concerned that we are, we're really getting close to the mark here. Because sewer and water, CIP and highway. And then they go, the next one would be police, fire, and cemeteries the first week in November. So, I mean, we gotta,
But I would encourage you to have the whole thing figured out before
Yeah.
they even start, because you need to know how each of those puzzles fit into the big picture.
right. All right, let's dedicate the remaining of our meeting, with an exception of if we have to do something that just all of a sudden come up, we can do that on the Monday the 7th. And keep in mind, maybe we'll have to meet another night that week, I know.
Got water that week too. The 9th.
Oh, they have the 9th.
Mm.
Well. yeah.
I've got the chimney sweep going. No, I'm kidding. I do, but that's not going to interfere with this.
Well, I mean, we just have to, we really are behind, so, I mean, we just have to.
I was thinking about the budget. I don't know. I'm sure, I didn't think to Google it, but I'm sure that there's tons of guidance to come up with. You know, when you have a proposed budget, it's gone up by, what was it, 5%, something like that?
This is-
5.5?
I think it's at 4.7.
Nice. So if we look at that and we say, I have no concept of if that is too high or too low, is the appropriate tackling of it to decide on a bottom line figure, what is acceptable to us for it to go up, and then by category, what is acceptable for this one to go up? You know, do we think that highway should be raised 20% and fire should be lowered 5%? What's a good way to tackle it? Because going line by line really doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't give you any picture of the total.
Well, it's ultimately necessary that you agree on every line, but you're
Right.
right, that, you know, it starts with the, you know, it's, I think, very helpful to start with the big picture, what is affordable, but then as you start evaluating what all the proposals are,
Everything starts to look quite attractive, right?
well, you know, this is really necessary, and that's really necessary, and so it just, you can certainly start with that
Mhm.
and see how it changes, how you approach things differently. You know, I guess the response is, it's different for everybody. Like, if you think that salaries are a pretty easy conversation, you can go forward with a certain percentage, see what that does, and then, okay, so then, you know, you can just cross things off the list that you think are easy to cross off the list, and it gets you to a certain point.
Mhm.
And then from there, you can say that that's livable or not livable. Like, so you can go from A to B or from B to A, but ultimately, you know,
Now, we came to a decision on the salary increases, right? Did we not
No.
come up, I thought we had 2%.
you had sort of a consensus, but not a real decision, that
Okay.
everybody seemed to offhand be in favor of 2%.
that's
So
what
I
I thought.
plugged in 2%, but I don't think that was a real, that's a just for now, I
Yeah.
think. So,
We put that in because we thought it wasn't going to be less than that, I think.
so,
wasn't
but
it?
the CIP spreadsheet, one of the other tabs, has like a projecting model in it, which is really valuable. You know, it is important to think about homeowners, what is affordable, cost of living's going up anyway, people on fixed income, retired people. You've gotta, you know, what can the demographic of your community handle?
What is the demographic of our community? Is it?
I think the average age is 47, and we have a,
Is that old for town? No.
no, I mean, we have a pretty healthy mix of people. So,
So it says nothing, really.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that it says nothing. I mean, you know that you're not Berlin, New Hampshire, and you know you're not Newcastle.
Is Berlin old and
So
Newcastle's young?
Berlin, you know, all the industry's gone, you can't get people to
Berlin's
live
one that's
there.
way up north.
Right,
yeah.
and so their
Used to play
property
at school.
tax is really high because their property's valued at almost nothing because the industry's gone and you can't get people to live there.
Yeah.
And then there's Newcastle that has the smallest property tax rate in the state, or nearly so, because their property is so expensive. So in the end, you know, if they pay the same amount of taxes, you know, it's just that their homes are worth more because they're all waterfront. So, but theoretically, it's a more affluent community, they could support a larger increase than people in Berlin who are
Right.
already a poorer community. I guess that's my point. So we are really right in the middle of all that. We're neither of those. For whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. We need to be looking at the bigger picture we don't necessarily have to nickel and dime the line to lines, the few changes of that, but what the bigger picture is per department.
Mhm.
And to see,
Because that's what it comes
That's it.
down to
Yeah.
essentially. Is
Well,
yeah.
and not just by department, but you know your transfer station tipping fees are really high. That's gonna, your bottom line. Like, there's no way to have that not affect your bottom line. There's not much that you can do about that. They don't have a whole lot for supplies or other expenses at all in that department. There are other departments with much bigger amounts of money that have more flexibility and more staff and more everything else. So it's not even a per department, it's a, how do you get all the pieces to work together? You know, to fit, to make something reasonable, you know?
Well, each of those departments are gonna say that their priority is more important than this
Right.
one and so on and so forth.
Right, and this
so
is your
that's-
job, that, like,
Yeah.
they're telling
So-
you what their priorities are for their, you know, and then you all have heard that and you get to determine,
Mhm,
you know, what's a middle ground, what's reasonable, what's affordable,
mhm.
what's necessary.
All right, so do we have all of the budgets and everything, everything that's been turned in is on that spreadsheet that was sent to us and we have it all, right?
Yes,
Everyone's.
I did change the, I sent an email about this today. We got the bill for hazardous waste
I
day.
saw that.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, we probably need to increase that.
Right, so
So is
I,
it the price based on what they bring in, is that, so it's hard to tell? I mean,
We
how is
probably
that,
assume that a lot of it's gonna be batteries and,
So
well,
they take everything that everybody did, they take the full cost of the whole day and they divide it by the number of people who showed up to get a cost per person.
oh, okay,
And then they charge us for how many people of ours
of
went.
our people in, oh, okay, that's how they determine the price, and they take the whole day versus, then only you pay your
Yeah,
share
they-
of that whole day.
Yeah,
wow,
So we could be paying a lot more based on what our 18 people brought in.
and we only budgeted $1,600,
Right.
and we under-advertised this.
that's my point.
Yeah,
Like,
so
So
maybe
it's
next
probably
year
gonna
we
be
need
quite
to,
a lot next year.
could be, yeah.
So I plugged in for 2020, I revised this to plug in the actual for this year, which I think is still gonna be insufficient if we properly advertise it.
Okay. All right, why don't you send us with the adjustment that you made, and send us the whole budget again, and we just need to really look at it before next Monday and make sure that if we have questions, and write them down.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering, I mean, I'm wondering if it's a worthwhile exercise that independently outside of the meeting, we go through it and come up with, you know, if we can decide on a point, what's a reasonable overall increase, and then aim for that.
You mean each one of us do our own?
Yeah.
Because we can't do it
Well-
separately and talk separately.
Oh, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
do
yeah.
it independently,
Yeah.
and then at least that way we come in and say, well, what's our thoughts on this line?
Yep.
Well, let's all talk about the line, you know, that way we come in and we each have our own thoughts on it already, and then we can discuss it.
No, I
It's a
think we-
pain,
Well,
but
I think we should do that, release by department, you know.
that we've done our own thinking about it, and then we can all talk about it together.
All right, why don't we go ahead and do that, and why don't you send that to Miles and see if he can
That's what
do
it
anything
is,
with
so.
it as well.
Maybe he's on a plane.
No, tell him.
No, I mean, when he's on a plane.
When he's on. Yeah. Okay, so let's, like I said, let's dedicate Monday after the highway, and just kind of crank it out as much as we can.
So then there's also CIP. So when we talk about the big picture, it's also, what are we putting in CIP? Or rather, what of CIP are you going to propose this year, and also other warrant articles, for example, the Conservation Land Trust, things
I
like
was
that.
just thinking about that.
Yeah, so that's part of the big picture too. So if you can that's another approach, determine what you think is really necessary of those items, because those will all have a tax impact, some more than others, depending on how much CIP money they're getting supported by.
Okay, so do we have the most recent update of the CIP?
Yes, I emailed it to you.
Okay,
So, I know Denise that you didn't like the recommendation, you didn't care for their final recommendation. So, this is two parts. The more immediate part is, what are you gonna propose and fund this year? And then the
Mhm.
second part is, what does the CIP plan look like now? The first part is more immediate because it affects the whole budget conversation, what can we afford, what's reasonable this
Mhm.
year? But you have a spreadsheet, so,
but a lot of those projects aren't 100% funded by CIP, so whatever it affects us in the capital items, for next year, if they're not 100% funded.
that's my
So
point.
you have to look at it very carefully, and if
Exactly.
they're saying we're gonna do it in 2020, we may not be able to do it in 2020 based on all of our other criterias that we have to take care of for 20. So
Well,
we just have to
right.
make sure we're really careful by that. We can't, I mean, theirs is only a recommendation, it's not a
Right.
final. We are, so we have to look at that really very. 'cause
And then
it's
there's
a
the
lot of money.
generator, which has little or no funding from CIP,
Mhm.
but if you don't put it on the warrant, you might end up with a really expensive emergency next year.
Mhm. Yeah, did they get it fixed?
It is, I believe it's fixed,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
How
so
much can a generator cost for a building?
20,000.
Are you
Right.
kidding
Was
me?
it 20,000?
It's
Yeah, well,
it's
This
5
is a big
digits.
Okay, cause I have like family friends who have generators for their house, and, but I don't think they power the whole house, it must be the case, it must not
Well,
generate that
mine,
much.
well, this is an installed one, so
Mhm.
mine was, I think 12,000 for mine,
An installed one.
installed one.
Oh, okay, 'cause I'm thinking of just this little portable
Oh, no,
gas.
no,
Oh,
oh,
no.
no, here,
Okay.
this
Look
is a
up there.
hardwired, totally
Okay.
installed.
If you look
Yeah.
between the front door of town hall and the front door of the police department, there's kind of like a little hut there, and it's
Yeah.
housed in there, it's got its own, you
Yeah.
know,
Is that because this is an emergency building?
yes.
This is a public safety
shelter,
building if
yeah.
something happens,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so is the fire station, which they have one as well,
Got it.
yeah.
Something
But,
otherwise.
You know, I
Let it
wasn't,
cold.
I wasn't dragging out a generator, so I had mine hardwired and
Got it,
installed
got it.
as well. But yeah, just when the lights go off, it goes on, and ever since I got my generator, it never happened.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
A town I grew up in, you know, Barnstead, have you ever heard of it? Power constantly, all the time, throughout the whole year, you constantly lose power. Here, never. It's wonderful. I don't know why, but
Yeah, we've been very,
And
very
here's
little.
tree trimming.
Yeah.
tree trimming is what keeps it on.
Yeah.
Nice.
Especially in
Eversource
the
made
winter
a
months 'cause of the
specific
ice and
effort a
stuff.
couple of years ago to
Mhm.
super trim, and
Oh,
that's helped a
cool.
lot,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it.
okay. So we got, all right, SS adjustment, social security adjustment?
Yes, if you wanna do it, the board had, thought that it might be a good idea, since it seemed as though it wasn't gonna benefit, the person who's contributing anymore, that you could, remember, adjust back.
3 years.
3
yeah.
years.
Oh,
if you wanted to.
oh, that's right.
So this is just a report back that I spoke to the auditor about it, he's happy to do it, he's estimating it would cost about $600 for him to do it, but it would,
What's the gain back?
I don't have a calculator, but it's about 123 times 26 times 2.5.
79.95.
That's very approximate. So that's for like 2.5 years because we stopped a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the clock is ticking. So right now it's not 3 years, it's 2 years, 9 months, 2 years, 8 months, whatever it is.
Where was that 3-year figure right? Did you look that up?
He said it, yes, it's
Okay.
right.
Did you also talk to the other party and tell them
No.
that they could do that as well?
No. But I certainly can
Oh.
and will, I
Okay.
just have not.
Okay.
He can definitely do that.
I don't know that, like,
Oh, why wouldn't they be able to do it if we can do it?
in
Who
theory,
knows?
I would never presume to understand
Yeah.
how these big
Okay.
agencies function. But I can ask,
So you're
I can ask
saying
the auditor to
to
look
get
into
approximately, say, 6,500, it's like, I'll go a little lower. So if we're gonna get 65, and this is gonna cost us how much, you said, approximately?
approximately $600.
Then we should do it. I don't know, what do you
Yeah,
think? I mean,
absolutely.
we might as
Okay.
well, yeah. I don't see why we wouldn't, we're gaining 6,000 back that we spent out, so.
Okay,
I'm
so,
gonna go ahead and, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and, instruct it's the auditor that's doing it?
yes.
The auditor to do our request for reimbursement of social security.
The employer, so it's for we would do it on behalf of us and on behalf of the employee affected.
No, we're just doing it on us, right?
It says 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days. The employer also files for a tax refund with IRS on Form 941X for both employer and employee for the same time frame.
Oh.
So here's the thing, I mean, it's kind of an all the one same thing, because if you're withdrawing on the town behalf,
Mhm,
then it affects the employee.
mhm.
So I think they would have to be connected because,
Oh, then that's good then.
It's
and then we have to do, like, redo all the quarterly reports and, you know, the W-3 and his W-4, his W-2 at the end of the year, which wouldn't have a tax impact. So it wouldn't change his taxes, but
Mhm.
just for reporting purposes.
Mhm.
I think it's because Speaker probably isn't tracked by how much the employer pays versus the employee. I think it's just Speaker paid. So
Mhm.
probably they just have an amount attached to his social.
I will verify that, but that makes
Okay.
sense to me,
I'll
that it would
forward
just
this
be an
document
all-in-one
again to
thing.
you,
Yeah.
Okay.
just so you have it. This
Thank
was
you.
from Social Security Administrator of New Hampshire.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor that we will proceed with this process. You want to second that?
Seconded.
All right, any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Okay, so go ahead and go.
Okay, thank you.
Recreation planning, you've heard nothing, have you?
There's a school board meeting a week, like, like Thursday next week.
I'm gonna come in and talk to you, I was thinking of something, I don't know if that would work, but I'll come in and talk to you sometime this week,
Okay.
okay? But that's not good that we haven't got any. Should we send another, final notice about looking for people, just to see if we get it? Should we just send a reminder?
I can do
All
that.
right,
Reminder to do what?
sign up for the committee,
We're looking for people,
Otherwise, we're
sending a note, like a renotice of
jeopardizing
that.
the program, if it doesn't, we don't get any committee members. All right. Avatar contract?
The contract expires at the end of the year, so for budgeting purposes, I've requested a new contract for the board to consider. Since the past 2 years, the board has only approved a 1-year contract. They're only proposing a 1-year contract. They will consider a multi-year contract that would conclude with the reval in 2022. So keep in mind that it's going up every year. If you do a multi-year, it will lock in the price better. So that's worth consideration.
They will contract the supposed increase probably, right?
Well, probably,
Yeah.
yes. So, but less so than what we've experienced
Yeah.
lately. Over the last few years, it's gone up a lot. This year, it's going up more, they give us a certain number of days. We have right now 11 contract days in a year that they use to work on our things. They do the spring pickups, they go through the building permits, they adjust values, they review exemption and elderly exemption applications and veteran credits and abatement applications and all these things. All those things are in the beginning part of the year. I had Chuck create a spreadsheet of how many hours they've used so far this year. We are at 8.4 days. And they are proposing to increase the contract to 12 days from 11. I don't think that's really necessary because we're past the really heavy time, the heavy assessing time of the year. So I don't know if they would consider keeping us at 11 and just cutting us off if a topic arises that passes that threshold or something. I just think they're being proactive in a way that doesn't necessarily best meet our time, money management needs. So I don't think we need that full day per year. But then it's increasing on top of that. So I can request to see, I guess I'm looking for feedback from the board about, do you want to see a multi-year contract? Do you want me to reach out and see if they will consider an 11-day contract, which may be less likely if we are looking for a multi-year contract, because they would likely be forecasting increased use over more years, like later. 1 year you can say, okay, we'll see how it goes, but they might not want to lock us into only 11 days for 2 or 3 years, for example. The other thing is I'd really like to see how we can insert language in some way to get better customer service about some things, more faster response time to inquiries.
That's my main concern, I don't
Some
think
things
that we
like
get turnaround calls back and we get delayed on things,
Yeah, and it's
And
not in the contract.
right,
So I'm really hung up in this situation because the contract says that they handle everything from A to Z. But if you really want them to handle everything from A to Z, then that's gonna take more time and then they're gonna increase your number of days. So really for that price, they're not gonna do A to Z or else you're gonna end up paying more. Like you've got this sort of chicken and egg kind of problem with this contract, the way it's currently written. If they're gonna do A to Z, then they're already doing that and they shouldn't be increasing the time. Like, it just kind of doesn't make sense to me. And then we're not getting responses from emails,
or
like,
phone calls.
like we would hope to see.
Mhm.
So, that being said, going out to bid, while it sounds like a lovely idea, we're using their software. They have been, I believe, the only contracted assessor since we've had one, or at least for decades. So they have a lot of institutional knowledge, which is really helpful and valuable. Which is not to say don't go out to bid, but it's a time-intensive process to do the bidding, evaluating the bidding, but even more so transitioning into different software and or people that are completely unaware of property here.
Is it worth you having a phone call with the owner of the company? I know that they're relatives of the Dome. But our lack of getting responses when we call or replying to emails or phone calls and saying, you know, we don't wanna have a separation, however we want the service, you know, that we don't believe we're getting.
I think it should happen. I don't think it's enough. I think there ought to be language.
No, I'm saying, yeah, we're gonna, but I think
But talking about
that
how can we
person may
put
not even
language.
know that we're not getting what we think we should be getting, you know?
Agreed.
But I think that, you know, absolutely, we need to have language as well, to make sure that it is part of the contract. And maybe a penalty if it doesn't happen, I don't know, you know,
Something.
something that gives us our rights as,
Consumers to get the service we think we're paying
absolutely.
for.
So, but it also might help to talk to the owner. Because who we deal with isn't the owner, but it's a relative of the owner, and yeah. So, I don't know, what do you think?
I agree, and in my mind, I could be wrong with this, in light of all that, it doesn't make sense to do a multi-year contract. If we're already not really getting kind of the service that we're paying for, it kind of sounds like, and then they're saying, oh, we've guaranteed, I mean, our requests haven't gone up in volume to them, right? The amount of.
Well,
assessment
no,
they've
I
had to
don't think so, but the other side of it is, to do so if you're not specifically gonna prioritize evaluating the contract, evaluating the service, putting it out to bid, and really staying diligent on the contract and the service, you might as well go with the multi-year, you know? So, it just has to stay on the top of the priority list, I think. I think it's just best due diligence, that if you're gonna go with a 1 year, I see your point, and I don't disagree. And I think that's why you all have gone with 1 year, is because, you know, we're not really happy.
hoping something better
But
comes up.
yet, we haven't been able to dedicate resources to make sure that we're getting what we think we need.
Mhm.
So I think that's the other side of it, is, like, if you want a 1 year, I'm okay with that, but we gotta stay on it.
Is there any chance that someone in that company is gonna break off and do their own gig, and then we'll go hire them, and they'll have all the institutional knowledge and cost less?
You never know.
Anyone?
At this point, not likely,
Okay.
Not likely, yeah.
but it's a good question. Okay, so I'll keep the conversation to a 1 year, but I can tell her that that's why we're talking about 1 year.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe they'll be like, totally sorry, I didn't know about it. We'll put in tons of language about,
And then we can review different language.
Mhm.
and then we'll say, great, 3 years, sign us up.
But so how do we feel about the 11 days versus 12 days?
Well, if they're not gonna make the 11 days, why would I add another one? Because the contract is guaranteeing and paying them for 12 days even if they don't work it, right?
Yes.
Well, they're gonna work it though, that's the same thing, like if we were to say, okay, let's add it to 12 years, but you give us a rebate if you only work 11, they're gonna work 12.
They'll find, there's always stuff to do, they'll find
Yeah.
stuff to do. The other thing is, we don't really know how much time they spend on, abatement mediations and some of these things that don't take place here.
Right.
And
Are there
so,
a lot of abatements every year?
half dozen,
Mhm.
I mean, it kind of depends. You always get more abatement applications the year of a reval, because very often values go up, people are shocked by that, and then they, you know, apply for an abatement, and so they plan for that. But then typically in subsequent years, the requests go down.
All right, so,
All right, so we'll stick to the 11 years, what happens if we go
11
over,
days.
and, 11 days, thank you. And I'll have a conversation conversation with them, and
Okay.
we'll see where we get with that.
So is there a contract here to be signed already, or is it something that we have to?
We do have a contract for you to evaluate,
Okay, or didn't we get that by email?
yes,
Okay, so I've seen that, okay, but,
it's pretty vague.
yeah, okay, so we can counter with a.
Right, and to that
Okay.
point, if you all like have a specific, any other thoughts in reading it over about things you think it doesn't address properly, or
Okay.
stuff you'd like to see,
Okay,
I can talk to them about that.
okay, all right, but we can't drag it on though, I would say look at it if possible,
Well,
within
it's,
the next week, and then we'll discuss it next week.
it's budgetary,
Right,
so
right, so we have to have it can't be dragged on.
too long, yeah,
Right,
agreed.
okay, all right. Let me see,
I always think that's spelled wrong,
what,
avatar.
It is, well, that is to say, an avatar by the different meaning of the word is spelt otherwise, and
Yeah.
that is how they spell their name.
Okay.
So you're not wrong.
all right, Space Needs Committee Police Consultant,
I don't have any update on that. I believe she has her data and she's working on it. I haven't heard from her, so I don't have
have they
that.
been in-house yet?
No,
Okay,
Are they talking to people yet?
not that I'm aware of.
Oh.
But I believe they wanted to evaluate the data before they did that.
Yeah.
So I'm
what
not,
data?
they're getting our call data from Stratford County.
Oh, okay,
So I believe they wanted to work with that before I'm not completely surprised, because I think they wanted to have an idea of what the data said,
okay,
because that would inform their questions.
but we need to make sure that it's done this year and completed this year.
Yes, I
And then
would,
we got that guarantee, right?
well, I wouldn't go so far as to say guarantee, but they're waiting on their payments until they do what they're supposed to do, and she assured me it would be weeks and not months. She said 6 weeks at the time, so
Okay,
it should be okay.
all right. Okay, Primex cap agreement.
Okay, so there are two of these in your blue folder.
Yep, I saw
Um,
it.
What they say essentially is you are agreeing to keep Primex as your insurance carrier for the next 3 years, and in exchange for that, they are going to limit the percentage by which the premiums can increase every year. So in other words, if you sign up with them, they'll guarantee that the rates not go up by more than, I think it says 6%, I don't recall, 3%, something like that. We were currently enrolled in this program, it has expired. We have put it out to bid before, I think it was 3 years ago when we had. Most municipalities, government entities, including counties, are with Primex because they are not a traditional insurance company, they are a risk management group, which means that they operate by different laws and are thereby far cheaper, a risk management pool. So they're cheaper than traditional insurance companies. We did put it out to bid about 3 years ago, and it was remarkably less expensive.
Mhm.
But here it is before you to decide.
Is Primex the name of something else that I'm thinking of? Like, is it one of those, pyramid schemes or something?
It might be, if
Not that this is, but.
well, if you don't put in this, if you decide that their website address might be something else, you definitely get other things come up.
So do you know what the average of the increases have been year after year?
Low single digits.
Okay, so this one is saying a maximum of 7%, and this is the property and liability, so that you're saying
It's been well within that anyway,
okay.
but this is guaranteeing it.
And this, right, and this is the workman's comp, which is guaranteeing maximum 10%.
So the thing to know about these is that the way a risk management pool works is that we're in a pool with other small towns that have a renewal date in January,
Mhm.
and it's based on the actual activity. So, depending on what natural disaster happens in a certain area of small towns in a given year, for example, it could change. It's an actual, it's not just an insurance company that pays its employees and tries to minimize risk, and, it operates in a different way. Much like the health insurance company, that, the rates are very much based on the activity of the people within the pool.
Right, right. So what did you budget plan for in this year's budget for this?
That's a good question. I budgeted for the same premium minus what I know our credit to be, and I'd have to separate what our credit is, but we got some kind of notice that, last year too, we got a credit and we didn't end up paying for what we were initially billed because so here again, not an insurance company, they received more in premiums than they needed to cover claims and expenses, and so there was redistribution of all of those.
Is this the property and liability or the other one?
So both of them, and actually, there's a third, which is
Which,
unemployment.
if you didn't go to a company like this, you wouldn't be getting a rebate.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
Yes. And for how much equipment we own and people and stuff, you know, it is remarkably not that expensive.
Mhm.
So,
It's
I-
reinsurance, basically. It sounds great. The 10% cap is basically a reinsurance.
well, so you're agreeing to 3 years. If it's a 2% increase, it's a 2% increase. If it's 8, it's 8. It's just not, it's guaranteed not to go. They want your guaranteed business in exchange for a guaranteed cap. So for, I did, yeah, so the actual, the bill will come out in October. The new amount is slightly less, it takes into account, so it's down by 0.8, and that's with the credit that we,
Mhm.
so it's not a budgeted increase.
So what would we put as a budget going forward, though?
Well, it's very much-
Would you go like the 7% and then
It's very much like health insurance,
Yeah.
where, you know, kind of pick something, I
you
don't
go
know
with
if
a
it,
max and then you go down?
or you
I
go with a
mean,
halfway in between, you
Yeah.
go with, you know, what it's been lately,
Yeah.
I mean,
What'd you say it was last year? For the workers' comp, do you know what the figure off the top of your head? What the percent increase was, I guess.
so I don't have a percent increase from 1 year to the next, it's not going up, it's going up very marginally. It decreased slightly, like $239, is what I budgeted for this year based on what the credit was that we received
Mhm.
this current year, which they told us we would get again next year, so.
I don't know, I think we should do it. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to exceed, so if it's lower, it's gonna be lower.
The
Yeah.
only downfall, if it's a downfall, is that you're agreeing to go with them for the next 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah, but really, there are not any great competitors, so you're not
Yeah.
really,
It's funny, but you have
Sacrificing.
language in here that allows you to just terminate if you don't have the appropriations available.
they have to by law say that,
Oh, really?
because you
Because
can't,
they can't sue us for,
well, because you can't otherwise approve it.
yeah.
Because if the budget doesn't pass, you just can't spend the money,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a New Hampshire thing or is that?
it's a New Hampshire thing. It may be otherwise, but
Yeah.
it may be elsewhere as well, but it's part of this, how this town meeting works and how, the authority of the people at town meeting, that you can't do multi-year contracts without that clause.
Nice. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, all right, why don't you make a motion?
Motion to enroll in the CAP program, or Primex, for the next 3 years to cap the maximum contribution
To workman's
for
compensation.
workman's comp and property and liability.
Program. Okay. All right, I'll second it. Any further discussion? Okay, so who signs this?
Thank you, you do,
I
please.
do. Okay. So all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. All right, so,
Do they publish valuations of the system that we're in?
I don't know that they, I mean, in somewhere, yes.
Yeah.
And you can request it, I'm sure. I'm not sure if they put it on their website, but I'm sure you can call somebody and ask for it.
They're probably subject to not very many regulations.
okay, so, RWSD concerns, we're gonna just table that. I think, at this point.
Agreed.
Policy review, okay, I'm sorry. I was gonna tell you what I was doing. Town administration standing items, board members' activity. What you got going?
Water meeting next week. If there's ever a Stratford Regional Planning Committee thing, I'll go to that. Other than that, nothing.
Let's see, I have nothing. Nothing for town anyway. For the board meeting, that's it,
Okay.
I'm done.
There's a planning board meeting tomorrow night. The Silver Street subdivision remains on the agenda. They're making more progress with their application. I don't know that they'll reach final approval tomorrow. There's also a preliminary discussion with a property owner who's gonna be submitting a site review application for the November meeting. All pretty standard stuff. There is a meeting on October 17th for Lamprey Regional. They're starting budgeting, so Ed and I will both go to that.
Okay.
Budget season everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got an email from the people who are doing the LED conversion project.
Yeah.
Because I followed up to say streetlights.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see a streetlight proposal to see if it qualifies for the same
Mm-hmm.
program and what the cost would be, so we can do it now or later or sometime and know what it is. It doesn't fall under the same program, and the return, I thought this was interesting, that the return on investment doesn't qualify for the program.
Hmm.
So I was really surprised by that. I asked him for his figures about, how he determined that, so we could better know what is the upfront cost and how long does it take to get it back, so that we can find, without that figure, you can't choose to prioritize it or not prioritize. We know that there will be savings in the utility rate. It's a approximately $36,000 line. So it would be a considerable savings. It's just about how much money does it cost to get there. So
Mhm.
I'm looking into that.
Are we putting this building in the budget for this year?
You certainly could at any time when the board feels comfortable, and when I send you the rebudgeting worksheet with,
No, I meant for 2020.
no. So, well, because it was still up in the, you all get to do with that whatever you want to do with the budget. I hadn't yet because it's still a conversation for this year, seeing how, you all wanted to see if it can fit in this year.
Okay, so has highway and fire been done yet?
They're not done. A container of supplies is arriving shortly. It's all happening.
Okay, that was quite a while ago though.
It is.
I know.
It's nothing is ever as quick as you want it to
So
be.
what happens though if we don't get the project complete by using this year's money?
It's not about project completion.
It's about obligation.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
So I would say you've got until probably the first week in December to decide and take
We wanna
action.
go forward.
And then after that, you're gonna be into next year's funds.
Okay, all right, I would like to have seen what they did with either one of the buildings before we went forward. about
And you may
looking-
still, once they do it, it'll be really quick.
Yeah.
It's just about setting the stage and getting the
Cause it's a
stuff
much
ready.
smaller building than this one,
Yes.
so that definitely shouldn't take long once they get going. Okay, all right. Anything else under town administrator?
No.
Okay, review of correspondences.
Can I just do it? Purchase order 1769 for BMB offset printing, rake it or leave it flyers,
What we got in the mail.
How about that?
Yep.
Yes.
$445.
So-
I'll second it.
What is it?
It comes out
You
of
get a brochure in the mail?
I don't check the mail. Do you know how old I am?
It just came this week.
Okay.
I got mine, I think today.
I think I got mine yesterday.
You know, if you just mow over the leaves, then they kind
Says
of scatter away and then you're done.
They say just
That-
leave
that
them
is the
there.
Oh, is that what you're supposed to do? Just leave
That's
it?
what I'm supposed to leave them there, right?
Rake it or leave it? What else options are there?
Well, you can bring it to the transfer station. So the point is, don't like, dump
I should
them,
read the flyer.
well, read the flyer.
Because I won't bother you guys. I'll read the flyer.
But it's for stormwater compliance, it was something that we needed to mail out for
Yeah.
the stormwater.
Cool.
All right, so all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
I imagine a lot of stormwater is about, I should go to like one of their meetings because I'm interested in it, but probably a lot of it's about managing nitrogen in the water, right?
The state, well, actually, the EPA tells us in what ways our waterways are impaired.
Yeah.
And then, we need to target our outreach accordingly, yes.
Do you know that at one point, and this isn't the case anymore, but I think it was in maybe 2011 or something, Salmon Falls River was the number one, considered the number one in the country most endangered watershed by environmental degradation. I don't know if it is anymore.
It's a very
I don't think
interesting.
it is anymore. I think they've done a lot of work to it.
Well, they have done a lot of work, you
Yeah.
know, the tanneries made it a different color
Right.
every day. And the estuary at Great Bay is fed by Salmon Falls and was impacted by all that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, this is a summary inventory evaluation from Minnesota for 2019.
Okay, so we talked about that, that's just the draft copy, the MS1.
And that's one, so we don't sign this?
No,
Okay.
Draft copy. Which is what you were allowed to print after you submitted that you were allowed to submit it.
yes, but now,
And now you're allowed to print it out.
yeah,
And
and
now
now
you
there are
can look
things
at it.
changing and we
Yeah.
need a new copy,
New
yes.
okay.
This is federal tax credits.
Oh, okay, so, yes, so this is about the 2 apartment buildings on Vaqueros Drive. It's just a notification that they are filing for tax exempt status. Which really means that they are, you know, they're getting a tax exempt status and because they provide affordable housing, they will accept Section 8, they will work with people through the housing authority. They're looking for feedback. I would suggest that you not provide any because it's sort of, it's kind of a fine line, but it's up to you to provide feedback. On the one hand, affordable housing is important and necessary. I'm not sure that you would want to stand by a particular property owner and whether or not they're entitled to it, though, without knowing more about it. But that's really essentially what it's notifying you about, it that they're going through this process.
Looks like they're past the
So we just
deadline.
don't do anything
Yeah,
until
it's
comes
just a
back at it, just
notification.
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah.
Rule. This is done in process. Items that need follow-up.
Yeah. I
We
just-
did,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we already dealt with this. This is
This
from
is
the
that
lawyer.
FYI.
Yeah, that was just, you've seen that, that's
I-
just, all of the rest of that I think
Okay.
is,
What's that PO behind there though? It's in his
Yeah.
file. I'm sure that it's,
Repainting of foyer.
oh, that's.
oh, right, we're still
Hold.
waiting for quotes on other quotes. We've got 2 other painters looking at it, and it's just hard to get them to be responsive, but they're aware of it and we're
Okay.
waiting.
So hard to get people, especially when we've learned this house now, small jobs are like, no one wants to do them. If it's not 10 grand, they're like small potatoes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll just put these back in, well, we signed this, so.
Yeah, you just, don't even put it, you don't have to even, yeah, you
Just
just,
put it in
yeah,
there,
just close
perfect.
it, and that's, yeah, that's great,
And what's
thank you.
in
And then
this?
there's cemetery deeds in the red
Okay.
folder.
Cemetery deeds, in witness thereof. Oh, is this that we changed it so that it didn't say,
Town clerk,
town clerk, just witness?
yes,
You're gonna be the witness.
okay.
Should we wait till Miles is around?
Do you
Yeah.
need all three to go, you just need
He
majority?
can come in at any time,
Yeah.
but really it's valid with two
Two
signatures.
signatures.
Okay, so should I make a motion?
Mhm.
Make a motion to, sign the number NT 1903, deed of burial lot, and NT 1904.
Okay, I'll second it. All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so this is the witness, see, they needed to revise this too, so it says its hand and seal on this day. Well, nobody's gonna seal it, that's really a notary, right?
Oh, is that what it is?
Well, it
Yeah,
doesn't have
that's
to
what I
seal.
prefer.
You wanna just go for it and just,
I can note it to them for next time. I
Okay.
don't think it really, impacts
Okay.
its validity.
okay. All I can cross off, set its hand and seal,
Sure,
or, and seal only.
sure.
And we are
On
setting
this
that.
30th day of September. 2009. I'll get you this one. Okay.
So these must be things that people like keep with their life paperwork kind of thing.
Safety
Interesting.
deposit box, yeah.
Yeah. If they lose it, do they still have a right to the property?
Kind of like if you lost the deed to your house, like,
And
yes.
a new deed.
Well, the registry has it, like, if
Right.
they lose this, like, we still have a copy, but it's still better if you don't lose it.
Yeah,
Great.
that's why it's written on this nice cardstock.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
All right, so then you can sign it afterwards.
Do you
Okay,
need to know what
yes.
addresses they are? Or anything?
1903 and 1904.
That's enough, yeah,
All right,
that's good,
that's good.
that's good.
All right. Community input. Wake up.
And we call that?
All right, hearing, we don't have any non-public,
No.
anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
All right. Good night all. Carolyn, what is this part of it? I still have to sign this part as well as this part?
Yes,
Up there?
both.
Okay. You can put on and then today's date.
Yes.
Okay.
Gosh, I was bowling yesterday. I'm sore. All I did was bowl.
Oh, that's more exercise than you think it is.
I certainly more than